Su Yi entered the Eternal World with a talent that guaranteed extraordinary fortune. His first barracks evolved into the god-tier Fallen Sanctum. Lilith and 9 deadly fallen angels became his opening army. Then Crystal Palace forced every future recruit to be female. Its so-called harem mode doubled female strength and raised potential. Dragons, gene guards, holy angels, and Valkyries soon joined them. Perfect loyalty kept every opposing faction under one command. His problem became hiding power. Kill to seize. The story began on Blue Star, where every 18-year-old gathered for Lord's Day and prepared to enter the Eternal World. Su Yi stood among the graduating students of Moto No. 1 High School, carrying memories from a previous life, but no obvious cheat. He was an orphan, so unlike wealthy heirs, he had no family resources, hidden backer, or prepared army waiting outside the rookie period. Their homeroom teacher warned everyone that the first 30 days would decide whether they became real lords or returned to ordinary life. Territory mattered more than pride. Troops were only tools and surviving the rookie window required knowing exactly how much risk one could handle. When the giant magic circle activated, students vanished group by group until Su Yi finally stepped forward and let the light swallow him. He reappeared alone on a grassland inside the Eternal World, where the system explained that this place was not a game, but a real battlefield. The Eternal Worlds will function like a system, granting panels, chat functions, rookie protections, talents, and the basic authority every lord required. Su Yi checked his starting land first, and felt relieved because open grassland was far better than a swamp, desert, or resource-starved wasteland. Then he examined the unique talent he had awakened, Supreme Sovereign, and immediately realized his supposedly ordinary reincarnation had finally produced a cheat. Its first trait, Echo of Fortune, guaranteed that every entry he bound would be gold rank or higher. That single effect meant every Lord's Heart upgrade could produce options other rookies might never see once in their entire lives. His rookie gift pack contained a Lord's Heart, 1 random barracks box, and 100 starting gold. After binding the Lord's Heart, Su Yi received his first entry selection and saw 2 gold options beside 1 red option. Life's Blessing could restore his army and grant a death exemption, while Outer God's Gift promised evolution at the cost of madness. The red option, Beyond Divine Evolution, could evolve a barracks to God tier and permanently lock troop loyalty at 100. Su Yi chose it without hesitation, because absolute loyalty solved one of the most dangerous problems in the entire Lord system. Troops were living beings with desires and emotions, meaning frightened or mistreated soldiers could desert, rebel, or even murder their own lord. With loyalty fixed forever, Su Yi could mix factions that normally hated each other without fearing an eventual civil war. He opened his random barracks box and received the Blasphemous Cathedral, a Tier 3 Chaos barracks built around dark magic and blood rituals. The building was respectable for a rookie, but Su Yi immediately used Beyond Divine Evolution rather than settling for respectable. Black and Crimson power wrapped the cathedral until it transformed into the god-tier Fallen Sanctum. The new barracks could recruit fallen angels at a normal cost of 1 million gold each, yet the rookie discount reduced that price to 1. Su Yi placed the Fallen Sanctum beside his miserable wooden shack and watched an enormous black-red cathedral rise from the grassland. Inside stood statues of different fallen angels and an 18-winged figure dominating the center of the main hall. He spent 10 gold on his first daily recruitment, expecting powerful troops, but not the spectacle that followed. 9 alluring fallen angels emerged from dark mist. Then a rainbow pillar announced that the 10th recruit was a hero. That hero was Lilith, a 7-sin fallen angel, who immediately treated Su Yi as her god-emperor. Her teasing personality almost overwhelmed him before he even managed to inspect statistics of his new army. Lilith's loyalty was permanently fixed at 100, and her potential already reached a level ordinary lords would consider impossible. She possessed the 7 deadly sins talent, powerful original sin flames, and a personal artifact called the 7-sin war scythe. The other 9 were original sin fallen angels, divided among pride, greed, lust, envy, gluttony, wrath, and sloth. Even these so-called common troops possessed potential high enough to surpass gods if Su Yi could keep raising them. That was when Su Yi understood the real scale of Beyond Divine Evolution. His weakest soldiers were already future monsters. He named his domain Supreme Heaven and checked the resources needed to upgrade the territory, only to discover he was almost completely broke. His initial land contained a broken shack, the Fallen Sanctum, a warehouse, and very little else worth mentioning. Fortunately, the rookie period offered a daily void trial, where enemies invaded and could be converted into resources. Sui selected Abyss difficulty immediately, because normal rewards would never feed God-tier troops or support God-tier barracks. The first invasion sent 1,000 Abyssal Imps into Supreme Heaven, a number that would have overwhelmed many rookies. Lilith and the Fallen Angels instead treated the invasion like their first training exercise. Black-purple wings filled the sky as the angels tore through the imps without suffering a single casualty. Sui barely needed to command because Lilith understood the battlefield, and his troops completely outclassed their enemies. When the trial ended, the system awarded an SSS evaluation for 0 losses and complete extermination of the invaders. Decomposing the corpses produced origin crystals, while hundreds of Abyss chests supplied gold and additional resources. The final SSS rating chest proved even more valuable than the ordinary drops. It granted high-grade meat cards, a large amount of currency, the innate Spirit Source Lake, and the unique Chaos Spring. The Spirit Source Lake could continuously strengthen creatures that remained inside it, solving Sui's problem of leveling expensive God-tier troops. The Chaos Spring never dried up, repaired wounds and curses, reduced elemental damage, and even possessed the ability to devour other wonders. Sui reshaped the empty grassland with Lord Authority and placed both wonders near the center of Supreme Heaven. The fallen angels immediately turned the Spirit Source Lake into both a training ground and their favorite place to relax. While they recovered, Sui returned to the Fallen Sanctum and spent origin crystals to raise it to level 2. The upgrade doubled daily recruitment, although the next level suddenly demanded far more crystals, gold, and a Seed of Darkness. Sui recruited another 10 original Sin Fallen Angels and placed them under Lilith's command. His army was still tiny by normal Lord standards, but every soldier carried God-tier foundations and fixed loyalty. Afterward, Sui upgraded his Lord's Heart and received another entry selection. The first red option strengthened Pure Order troops, while the second red option strengthened Pure Primal Chaos troops. Both were powerful, yet each pushed him toward a single faction and wasted the freedom beyond divine evolution had given him. The final option was only gold rank, but its effect immediately caught Sui's attention. Crystal Palace restricted Supreme Heaven, so the domain could recruit only female troops. In return, every female unit gained doubled strength and an additional increase to her potential ceiling. The note attached to the entry openly mocked him for entering harem mode, but Sui saw the military value beneath the joke. A faction restriction would weaken his future choices, while a gender restriction barely mattered when his current army was already entirely female. He bound Crystal Palace, and the effect instantly raised Lilith and the other fallen angels to even more absurd potential. From that moment onward, Supreme Heaven could no longer summon male troops, even if the original barracks normally produced them. Sui understood the downside, accepted it, and decided a goddess army with doubled strength was a problem he could live with. He refused to keep upgrading recklessly because the strength of Void Trial enemies scaled with the Lord's Heart. Rank suppression was brutal, and Black Iron troops fighting bronze enemies could lose most of their effective damage. Lilith was strong enough to dominate her own rank, but Sui had too few units to gamble with higher-tier monsters yet. Instead, he decided to build troop levels first, collect more resources, and advance his Lord's Heart, only when the army could keep pace. He opened the rookie chat and found thousands of lords already arguing about talents, trials, resources, and failed attempts at showing off. Some people had chosen difficulties they could not handle and were desperately selling anything valuable just to recruit replacements. Sui's realized the rookie economy would become as important as direct combat because rare upgrade materials could not be farmed reliably. Using an anonymous account called Otherworld Traveler, he posted that he wanted to buy a Seed of Darkness. The request looked insane on day one, because such a treasure usually came only from high-end raiding chests. Unknown to Sui, another reincarnated lord named Yishio noticed the post and immediately recognized the anonymous buyer from his previous life. Yishio remembered Otherworld Traveler as a future arms dealer who would dominate the newcomer generation through technology and trade. In his previous timeline, that mysterious lord eventually became number 1, while merchants and major guilds competed to cooperate with him. Now reincarnated with 10 years of future knowledge, Yishio believed he could steal those opportunities and surpass the man he remembered. He possessed a Tier 10 Dragon Slayer champion force and a powerful King's Authority talent, giving him confidence that history could be changed. Yishio planned to capture future inheritances first, win over the important merchant network, and eventually turn Otherworld Traveler into a subordinate. Meanwhile, Su Yi had no idea a second reincarnator was already building plans around a reputation he had not created yet. His attention remained on Supreme Heaven, where 20 fallen angels trained, relaxed, and waited for the next void trial. Lilith's potential had risen again under Crystal Palace, making her growth even more frightening than when she was first summoned. The first day ended with Su Yi realizing he had accidentally built the beginning of an army that broke nearly every normal lord rule. What looked from the outside like an absurd harem domain was already a hidden god-tier military machine. His greatest advantage was not merely raw combat power. It was that every new system rule seemed to become more profitable when combined with his talent. Absolute loyalty let him ignore faction hostility. Crystal Palace rewarded an all-female roster, and god-tier evolution turned cheap. Rookie pulls into future divinities. Even the Chaos Spring and Spirit Source Lake reinforced that same snowball by healing, evolving, and leveling troops without consuming normal training resources. That combination meant every day Su Yi survived would widen the gap between Supreme Heaven and an ordinary rookie territory. Yet the stronger the hidden domain became, the more dangerous exposure would eventually be once veteran lords could enter the picture. For now, anonymity protected him, and the rookie period gave him a narrow window to become too valuable or too strong to casually erase. Day 2 would begin with Su Yi still pretending he was merely another lucky rookie, while the first real merchant connection approached his territory from the chat system. Day 2 began with Su Yi discovering that Lilith's playful attention was nearly as exhausting as fighting an abyss trial. The Chaos Spring restored him almost immediately, turning what would have been days of recovery into a few mouthfuls of water. He recruited another 20 fallen angels, bringing the Fallen Sanctum's daily output to the full level 2 capacity. Before starting the next trial, Su finally received a friend request from a merchant lord, using the name Little Merchant. The woman behind that account was Lin Xia Sha, a young heir connected to one of the major trading guilds. Unlike desperate rookies asking for charity, Su Yi immediately asked for rare materials and promised to pay market value. Lin Xia Sha recognized the behavior of someone with resources, ambition, or both, and decided he was worth testing as a client. Su Yi requested a Seed of Darkness and any affordable barracks she could locate, regardless of faction. She promised to search her network, impressed that a Day 2 rookie was already shopping for materials most people could not use. Su Yi valued that network more than bargaining over every coin, because development speed mattered more than squeezing out small savings. With the deal in motion, he assembled 40 original Sin Fallen Angels for the second Abyss trial. This invasion produced 5,000 Tier 4 Abyss Fiends, all far stronger than the imps from the previous day. Su Yi was relieved he had not advanced his lord's heart too aggressively, because rank suppression could have turned the battle dangerous. Lilith dove directly into the horde and the other fallen angels followed, turning the domain into another one-sided slaughter. New recruits caught up rapidly, while Lilith climbed several black iron stars through sheer combat experience. The system again awarded 0 losses and an SSS rating when all 5,000 fiends were eliminated. Decomposition produced another large supply of origin crystals, while hundreds of abyss chests delivered gold and resource cards. Su Yi's economy was growing fast, but the cost of god-tier expansion was growing even faster. His next Lord's Heart entry selection offered several tempting defensive and predictive abilities. Fate's guidance could answer one question about his own future each day, which made it useful but not essential. Bulwark of Size linked Supreme Heaven's spatial barrier to the combined strength of every troop inside the territory. The stronger Su Yi's armies became, the harder it would be for invaders to tear open space and enter his domain. He selected Bulwark of Size because surviving future invasions mattered more than receiving one prophecy every day. That decision added a hidden defensive layer that would scale naturally as his god-tier forces continued growing. Soon afterward, Lin Xiaxia messaged him with the Seed of Darkness he wanted. The seller demanded either origin crystals or gold, and Su Yi chose gold to avoid exposing how many rare crystals he possessed. Lin Xiaxia accepted the transaction, privately noting that paying 20,000 gold on Day 2 was already abnormal. Su Yi took the Seed of Darkness directly to the Fallen Sanctum and finally completed the expensive Level 3 upgrade. Darkness twisted around the cathedral as the Barracks gained its first true aura, Eternal Primordial Dark. Any fallen angel killed in battle could now return to the primordial darkness and be reborn as long as the sanctum survived. The effect was essentially unlimited resurrection protection for one of the strongest troop lines in the entire territory. Su immediately used the remaining recruitment slots because wasting a daily pull made no sense during the rookie period. This time, the darkness produced a completely different hero instead of another original Sin variant. The new fallen angel was Ishtar, an ancient pure-blood fallen angel connected to the first darkness. Unlike Lilith's playful temperament, Ishtar behaved like a direct, disciplined warrior and carried the blade of primordial dark. Her existence unlocked the orthodox pure-blood fallen angel line, giving Supreme Heaven a second branch from the same god-tier Barracks. 9 pure-blood fallen angels appeared with her and were assigned under Ishtar's command. Lilith now controlled the original Sin branch, while Ishtar handled the pure bloodline. The two women were equally loyal to Su Yi, but naturally competitive because their bloodlines represented different fallen angel traditions. Su Yi welcomed that competition, as long as it never crossed into sabotage or internal fighting. A celebration followed at the pool of wine and feast of meat, another treasure Su Yi had gained from earlier rewards. The wonder could provide endless food and drink at different ranks, solving the daily supply problem created by hundreds of powerful troops. The fallen angels treated the banquet as proof that their god emperor expected them to enjoy life as much as they fought. Sui also recognized that comfort mattered, because a strong army without morale eventually became unstable in ordinary territories. His fixed loyalty removed the danger of betrayal, but good living conditions still made training and organization easier. Later, he relaxed beside the spirit source lake, while Talus had not yet entered the story, and Lilith managed the growing angel forces. Lin Xiaxia contacted him again, this time offering troop refresh recruitment cards. To most rookies, those cards were difficult to use, because extra troops meant extra food, wages, and equipment. To Su Yi's, they were priceless, because every refreshed slot could produce another god-tier female unit for 1 gold. He bought all 5 cards, and asked Lin Xiaxia to keep purchasing every similar card she could find. The Fallen Sanctum absorbed those refreshes first, because it already had 2 established hero lines, and the highest immediate return. Repeated recruitment produced roughly 150 additional Fallen Angels, divided between original Sin and Pure Blood units. No new hero appeared, but Susi was satisfied, because the sheer number of God-tier troops increased Supreme Heaven's combat power dramatically. His total army was still smaller than many ordinary rookie territories. Yet, comparing headcount alone had become meaningless. 1 fallen angel could erase groups of lower-tier soldiers, and every new recruit enjoyed fixed loyalty, Crystal Palace, and multiple territory buffs. Su Yi knew he could not rely on fallen angels forever, however, because a single troop type created obvious tactical weaknesses. The next important opportunity came from another barracks he obtained and evolved with Beyond Divine Evolution. That structure became Supreme Protocol, a god-tier technology-side barracks representing absolute order and advanced biological engineering. Its first hero was Talus, a cold white-haired gene guard whose entire purpose was protecting Su Yi. Talus differed from the angels because her growth depended on absorbing and integrating powerful genetic factors. Her loyalty was absolute, and she interpreted Su Yi's will itself as the highest form of order. That made her surprisingly compatible with Lilith, despite one representing chaos and the other representing absolute order. Su Yi realized Beyond Divine Evolution had created an empire where ideological factions mattered less than personal loyalty to him. The ordinary gene guards possessed a limited number of genetic fusion opportunities and therefore required careful focus. Su Yi refused to waste those opportunities on weak creatures, planning to wait until Supreme Heaven recruited stronger bloodlines. Supreme Protocol also introduced a path toward technology, something Su Yi immediately recognized could become useful later. The world of veteran lords was dangerous, and openly revealing a fallen angel army would attract the wrong attention. A technology-side public identity could eventually hide his true military foundation, because established powers considered technology predictable and manageable. For now, however, Su Yi focused on strengthening the domain, rather than creating a cover story too early. New wonders continued arriving from SSS rewards, including the Hall of Heroes and other support structures that made death increasingly meaningless. The Hall of Heroes could revive fallen units on a cooldown, stacking another survival layer on top of eternal primordial dark. That meant Lilith's branch could potentially die, return through the Fallen Sanctum, and still possess an additional revival method. Su Yi began to understand why high-end Lord battles were decided by layered systems rather than simple attack statistics. A single troop could carry Barracks auras, Lord entries, wonders, artifacts, territory buffs, and personal talents at the same time. Supreme Heaven was already stacking more of those layers than most rookies could imagine. Another Lord's Heart advancement presented new entry choices, and Echo of Fortune once again prevented Su Yi from seeing anything below gold. The Crystal Palace restriction remained active, through every recruitment quietly shaping the territory into the harem. Army promised by the title. No matter whether a barracks originally produced mixed genders, only female versions could now appear inside Supreme Heaven. The restriction became especially important with technology units because it proved the rule applied across factions and species, rather than only angels. Su Yi joked about the situation privately. Yet, from a military perspective, the effect was brutally efficient. Every female recruit gained doubled strength before personal talents, barracks auras, or territory bonuses even entered the calculation. Yishio continued monitoring the anonymous combat ranking and noticed the mysterious first-place Lord's power climbing in impossible jumps. He still believed the hidden leader must be following a technology-heavy path because normal troop growth could not explain the numbers. That misunderstanding worked in Su Yi's favor long before he consciously decided to use technology as camouflage. Yishio tried contacting Lin Xiaxia with the same manipulative strategies he remembered from his previous life. Instead of impressing her, his talk of wagers, future cooperation, and buying on credit made him look like an entitled stranger. Lin Xiaxia simply blacklisted him and returned to serving the anonymous client, who actually paid for what he requested. Yishio could not understand why history was already drifting away from his memories. He assumed Otherworld Traveler had lied about how the partnership originally began, never suspecting Su Yi was changing the timeline through overwhelming resources. Back in Supreme Heaven, Lilith teased Ishtar for struggling to express affection toward their god emperor. Ishtar could face monsters without hesitation. Yet simple emotional teasing left the ancient warrior visibly embarrassed. Su Yi stopped the argument before it escalated and reminded both women that their rivalry was welcome, only if it strengthened the army. The growing cast of female heroes made Crystal Palace look increasingly ridiculous from the outside and increasingly valuable from within. Each heroine filled a different role, instead of existing only as decoration around the Lord. Lilith provided flexible chaos combat, Ishtar brought pure darkness, and Talus introduced adaptive genetics and personal protection. Su Yi now needed additional factions, long-range mobility, stronger frontline bodies, and eventually someone capable of thinking about logistics. The rookie period was still young, but Supreme Heaven had already evolved from one cathedral into the foundations of a multi-faction empire. What Su Yi lacked most was no longer courage or troop quality. It was enough money, crystals, and specialized heroes to exploit everything he had unlocked. That pressure pushed him toward the next stage of expansion, where Beyond Divine Evolution would begin converting completely different barracks into equally impossible god-tier armies. The first of those new branches would give him the brute force body his fallen angels lacked and make the female-only rule look even more absurd. The next major expansion began when Su Yi evolved a low-tier green lizard nest instead of dismissing it as useless. Beyond Divine Evolution transformed the crude barracks into the Origin Dragon Nest, a god-tier primal chose structure capable of recruiting primordial dragons. Su Yi raised it to level 2, placed it beside his existing buildings, and invited Lilith, Ishtar, and Talus to meet the new faction. The first recruitment produced 20 dragons, 19 black gold units surrounding a much larger hero with 8 wings. That hero introduced herself as Pangalia, a Doom Ultimate Dragon, still considered a juvenile despite already possessing terrifying physical power. Her talent commanded annihilation. Her body was nearly indestructible, and elemental attacks were effectively useless against her. Crystal Palace still applied, meaning every primordial dragon recruited by Supreme Heaven was female, despite the species difference. Pangalia's potential reached an absurd level, while the normal black gold dragons became her exclusive legion. Su Yi understood that this branch solved one of his greatest weaknesses, because the dragon line offered overwhelming bodies and battlefield destruction. At equal level, even Lilith could not suppress Pangalia through straightforward physical combat. The dragon hero treated Su Yi as her dragon king and accepted command of the new legion without hesitation. Suyi introduced her to the existing heroines and once again watched chaos, order, and primal chaos coexist because loyalty overrode faction hostility. Most lords would have destroyed themselves by placing those alignments together in one small territory. Supreme Heaven instead gained complementary combat styles from groups that should have considered each other natural enemies. Soon afterward, Lin Xia located another barracks for sale, a Tier 3 order structure built around cross-bearing nuns. The seller wanted an outrageous treasure in exchange, but Su Yi refused to overpay and pushed the deal down to practical resources. Once the transaction closed, Beyond Divine Evolution transformed the barracks into the god-tier Holy Sanctum. The new sanctuary represented pure order and justice, making it the ideological opposite of the Fallen Sanctum. Su Yi upgraded it, placed it near Supreme Protocol, and immediately felt Lilith's hostility toward the building. He warned every existing hero before recruitment that the new forces were companions, not enemies. Inside the Holy Sanctum, an 18-winged angel statue presided over the first summoning. 20 armored female angels appeared in holy light, led by the hero Kesha. Kesha represented holy order, carried the sword of order, and possessed the authority to judge creatures she considered evil. The confrontation with Lilith and Ishtar almost began instantly because light and darkness reacted to each other on instinct. Suyi stopped both sides before a weapon was drawn and made his rule simple. Rivalry was allowed, internal war was not. Kesha knelt and accepted his will as the highest order, while Lilith and Ishtar reluctantly obeyed for the same reason. That moment proved Supreme Heaven could combine troop types no conventional lord would dare place in the same army. Kesha's 19 holy angels became the newest branch, giving Suyi healing, judgment, order magic, and a stable holy faction. He now commanded fallen angels, gene guards, primordial dragons, and holy angels, all female and all god tier. The combat ranking quietly reflected that expansion, with Su Yi's hidden score climbing by enormous jumps every time a new branch appeared. Rookie chat exploded over the anonymous first-place lord, and most observers assumed only mass-produced technology could explain such growth. Su Yi had hidden his identity, so nobody could connect the ranking to a reincarnated orphan from an ordinary high school. Yishio watched the same ranking and became increasingly frustrated because even his future knowledge could not close the widening gap. He decided to wait for the dimensional rift system, believing that event still offered him a chance to change his position. Suyi ignored the public discussion and instead examined another unique wonder obtained from an SSS chest. The Tower of Eternity contained one simple but monstrous effect. Its light could continuously strengthen troops until they formed immortal divine bodies. He placed the tower above Supreme Heaven like a hidden golden sun, so every soldier in the domain could absorb its influence. That wonder stacked perfectly with infinite resurrection, the Spirit Source Lake, Crystal Palace, and the Loyalty Lock. Even a weak unit would eventually acquire a body carrying eternal divinity if it remained under the tower long enough. Suyi realized his territory was no longer producing temporary rookie soldiers. It was cultivating future gods by default. Another Lord's Heart upgrade brought 3 new options, including End of Dharma Era, Mechanical Ascension, and Infinite Evolution. End of Dharma Era would erase transcendent power from the territory, making it completely incompatible with almost every army Su Yi owned. Mechanical Ascension offered technology bonuses, but it would convert his forces and sacrifice too much of their existing advantages. Infinite Evolution removed potentials entirely and allowed troops to keep growing as long as the Supreme Heaven continued developing. Su Yi bound Infinite Evolution immediately because it turned every god-tier unit into an open-ended investment instead of a capped asset. Combined with Crystal Palace, even units already pushed beyond their normal ceiling no longer had a final stopping point. The entry also made the Tower of Eternity far more valuable because endless physical evolution now matched endless potential. Su Yi began thinking less like a rookie surviving 1 month and more like a ruler building forces that might accompany him forever. Another unique treasure, the Divine King's Vault, soon expanded his personal survival options. The vault could store and copy weapons, raise some copied equipment, and even project collected treasures with their original properties. Suyi attempted to copy Lilith's exclusive 7-Sin War Scythe, but discovered hero-exclusive artifacts could not be duplicated. He changed tactics and asked ordinary original Sin fallen angels to present the weapons associated with each of the 7 Sin Sins. Those non-exclusive weapons could be copied, allowing the vault to collect pride swords, greed daggers, lust whips, envy sabers, gluttony hammers, wrath axes, and sloth scythes. He repeated the process with pure blood fallen angels and holy angels, adding blades of primordial dark and swords of judgment. The gene guards were left for later, because their equipment had not finished evolving with their genetic path. Suyi now possessed a flexible personal arsenal without taking weapons away from the soldiers who originally carried them. The collection mattered because a lord was normally protected by troops, but relying on bodyguards for every possible situation was still dangerous. While Suyi expanded his arsenal, Talus finally became ready for the genetic development Supreme Protocol required. She explained that gene guards needed powerful bloodline factors, and that only a few fusion opportunities should ever be used. Suyi called Lilith, Ishtar, Kesha, and Pangelia together so Talus could analyze the strongest available sources. Each heroine provided a single drop of blood, representing original sin, primordial darkness, holy order, and annihilation dragon power. The four bloodlines carried completely different energies that would normally destroy one another as inside an orc body. Talus used the Void Engine to absorb them, then entered a sealed cocoon while her biological system analyzed the impossible combination. The four heroines watched carefully, because another creature copying their power would normally be treated as theft or provocation. They tolerated it only because Suyi had approved the process, and Talus was a trusted protector within the same territory. Suyi used the waiting period to expand Supreme Heaven's physical size, so the rapidly growing dragons and troop population had room to move. The territory reached several new levels, increasing storage, defensive space, and room for future barracks. He still avoided excessive growth, because a larger area meant a wider perimeter during void trials. The goal was controlled expansion, not chasing the territory ranking for meaningless prestige. When Talus finally emerged, her statistics had changed completely. She could now activate original sin form, fallen form, holy form, annihilation form, and a final ultimate form. Her potential jumped dramatically, and the gene guards gained the ability to build their own light-dark dragon path from selected bloodlines. Talus demonstrated original sin form first, changing her armor, wings, aura, and weapon, while borrowing the authority of Lilith's line. She then shifted through darkness, holy power, and dragon traits, proving Supreme Protocol could reproduce multiple combat systems inside one soldier. The ultimate form combined those foundations without simply copying any single donor. Lilith, Ishtar, Kesha, and Pangelia all became serious when they felt how much power Talus had gained. Suyi stopped the demonstration once the point was clear, and gave Talus full authority to guide the Gene Guard line. She chose Pangelia as the core physical foundation, then blended Ishtar's darkness and Kesha's light for the ordinary guards. The resulting light-dark dragon gene guards acquired multiple armaments and a liberation mode, while keeping their protective specialization. Supreme Heaven now had one branch, capable of changing combat forms according to the enemy, rather than relying on a fixed element. Suyi became curious about the threshold required to form a true legion. In the Lord system, 10,000 coordinated troops could trigger a qualitative change and awaken an exclusive legion aura. His numbers were nowhere near that level yet, but spend freely and refresh cards made the goal more realistic than it first appeared. What Suji jokingly called harem mode had quietly become something far larger than a collection of attractive heroines. Every woman leading Suyi's army represented a distinct military doctrine, from sin and darkness to genetics, annihilation, and holy judgment. Suyi encouraged those differences because an empire of identical followers would be easier to manage but weaker at solving unfamiliar problems. What worried him was that every current hero was still fundamentally a warrior. When he asked how to conquer and develop an entire dimensional world, their first answers were variations of kill, destroy, or purify everything. That response made Suyi realize raw power alone could not build a sustainable empire. A world contained mines, forests, cities, factories, living populations, and resources that could be ruined by indiscriminate destruction. He needed strategists, administrators, researchers, and economic specialists as badly as he needed stronger fighters. Supreme Protocol became his greatest hope, because a technology-side barracks might eventually produce the kind of non-combat hero his army lacked. Until then, Suyi continued stockpiling origin crystals, gold upgrade materials, and rare recruitment cards through Abyss and Lin Xiaosha's network. Each completed day strengthened the same snowball. More troops meant more trial rewards, which funded more barracks, which created more troops. At the same time, the need for secrecy increased, because no normal rookie should have possessed this many god-tier systems. Sui decides that the future public story would eventually need to explain his wealth and combat score, without revealing fallen angels, dragons, or divine wonders. Technology still looked like the cleanest answers, because veteran lords respected its production value, but rarely feared its ultimate ceiling. That cover had not been built yet, but the idea would become increasingly important as the rookie period moved closer to its end. For now, Supreme Heaven entered the next stage, with 5 main heroic commanders, multiple immortal branches, and a Lord's Heart packed with impossible entries. The only thing missing was enough resources to feed the pace Su Yi had accidentally created. After Talus completed her first evolution, Su Yi upgraded the Lord's Heart again and received another set of red entries. Twilight of the Gods would turn Supreme Heaven into a graveyard where gods died, but it would also prevent Suchi's own side from becoming gods. Forbidden Land promised monstrous evolution by twisting everyone into unnameable existences, a price Su Yi refused to pay for raw power. Godslaying power was dangerous for a different reason, because it specifically granted his troops an advantage against divine beings. Binding that entry could make Su Yi the natural enemy of every established god who learned what Supreme Heaven possessed. He still selected godslaying power because his army was already walking toward divinity, and future conflicts with gods were almost inevitable. The effect quietly spread through every troop, adding another hidden layer that would matter far more after their ranks increased. Su Yi kept the entry secret and returned his attention to the Gene Guards, whose ordinary members were ready to complete their first fusion. Talus chose Pangelia's dragon bloodline as the physical core, then added Ishtar's darkness and Kisha's holy power. She deliberately rejected Lilith's original Sin genetics because the 7 combined authorities were too complex for stable mass integration. The resulting light-dark dragon Gene Guards gained multiple armament modes, powerful bodies, and feeful genetic liberation state. Su Yi left their future evolution to Talus because professional decisions were better handled by the hero, built for biological engineering. The 5th rookie day arrived with Supreme Heaven, already operating on a daily rhythm of recruitment, training, trials, and resource management. Su Yi recruited from every available barracks in sequence, assigning each new match directly to its corresponding heroine. By then, his forces included hundreds of fallen angels, 100 Gene Guards, growing dragon numbers, and a developing holy angel branch. Despite the impressive quality, Su Yi remained dissatisfied because a true legion required 10,000 members, and he was still far from that threshold. He began another Abyss trial and ordered the newest recruits to take priority on experience. The invaders had risen to bronze rank, proving the Lord's Heart could no longer be advanced carelessly, without threatening the SSS clear. Su Yi's established heroes controlled their fronts, while weaker new units used the battle to close the level gap. The SSS rewards cycle continued feeding Supreme Heaven with crystals, gold, resource cards, barracks materials, and increasingly unusual treasures. Barracks upgrades eventually pushed every major structure to level 3, where powerful faction-specific auras began appearing. The Holy Sanctum gained holy immortality, allowing dead holy angels to return, just as Fallen Sanctum units returned through eternal primordial dark. Other level 3 barracks gained corresponding combat or faction auras that strengthened their own specialized branches. The result was an army where death, fatigue, loyalty, and potential limits were all becoming less meaningful every day. Su Yi's bigger problem was economic. God-tier troops still consumed resources, even when their recruitment price remained temporarily discounted. He owed Lin Xia Sha a large amount of origin crystals for upgrade cards and rare seeds she had sourced on credit. Rather than reveal his full income, Su Yi deliberately repaid the debt in small daily transfers, so his partner would not realize how extreme his harvests were. His attention turned toward the unique dimensional gate, which could anchor worlds and potentially solve the resource bottleneck permanently. When Su Yi asked his 5 major combat heroes how they would conquer a dimension, every answer involved killing whatever stood in the way. Lilith recommended elimination. Ishtar agreed. Talus reduced the problem to obedience. Pangelia preferred destruction, and Kesha suggested purification. Su Yi stared at them and finally accepted that Supreme Heaven possessed several terrifying generals, but not one proper civil administrator. Killing monsters could produce experience and chests, but destroying forests, mines, cities, and infrastructure would waste the very resources he wanted. He needed a hero who could research, organize, industrialize, and turn conquered worlds into productive assets. That realization made Supreme Protocol even more important, because technology was the faction most likely to produce a suitable specialist. Before the hero arrived, Su Yi received another red entry from advancing the Lord's heart. Favor of the gods promised blessings, but greatly increased the possibility that actual gods would discover his territory. Origin could slowly transform Supreme Heaven into a cradle of ancient life, powerful but too slow for his immediate needs. Spend freely reduced all troop recruitment to 1 gold permanently, even after the rookie discount eventually disappeared. For Su Yi, that third option was more valuable than almost any direct combat bonus. Without it, 1 god-tier soldier would normally cost roughly 1,000,000 gold, making daily recruitment impossible after the beginner period. With Spend Freely, 10,000 future god-tier troops would cost less than what an ordinary lord spent on a few mediocre soldiers. Su Yi bound the entry immediately and realized his long-term legion problem had just become a matter of recruitment slots rather than money. He decided not to rush the Lord's Heart further until his troops reached Bronze 9-star, and resources could support another full advancement cycle. Day 6 arrived, bringing another routine recruitment wave across Fallen Sanctum, Supreme Protocol, Origin Dragon Nest, and Holy Sanctum. Su Yi's army was now large enough that every daily Abyss trial produced enormous piles of bodies, chests, and rank gains. The 6th trial sent Bronze 9-star Abyss Horn Demons, stronger cannon fodder that still failed to break Supreme Heaven's lines. Su Yi watched the massacre while studying live streams from other rookies and saw how different normal lord development looked. Many streamers displayed talents and troops publicly because they were effectively auditioning for major families that would fund them after the rookie period. Accepting that support usually meant signing harsh contracts and giving up much of one's future independence. Su Yi understood why ordinary geniuses accepted the bargain, because surviving alone after 30 days was far harder than the protected rookie stage. His own existence would be even more dangerous if a major faction learned he had god-tier barracks capable of endlessly producing future gods. The established powers might tolerate rich newcomers, but they would never tolerate a system that threatened the value of their own inherited armies. That was another reason Su Yi needed technology as his eventual public face. When the 6th Abyss trial ended, the system counted 20,000 dead invaders and awarded another SSS rating. Decomposition produced thousands of origin crystals, while thousands of bronze chests finally delivered massive quantities of currency and advanced materials. The reward included new resources such as gold, silver, steel, and multiple elemental crystals that ordinary rookies would not see for weeks. Su finally felt temporarily wealthy, although his definition of wealth had become distorted by god-tier operating costs. The SSS rating chest then produced 2 more barracks, along with a refresh card, an upgrade card, and another unique treasure. One barracks was an Amazon camp, a rare all-female military structure that perfectly matched Crystal Palace. Beyond Divine Evolution, transformed it into the Valkyries Sanctum. Su Yi used an upgrade card to push the new barracks directly to level 3 when he lacked the required Seed of War. Its aura, Glory of the Valkyries, doubled the power of units recruited from the Sanctuary. The first recruitment produced female Sky Patrol Valkyries, riding dragon-scaled Pegasi. Their hero was Aoritas, a god-tier war goddess, carrying a spur, bow, and sword, each functioning as an artifact. Aoritas specialized in patrol duty and legion warfare, 2 capabilities Supreme Heaven had been missing. Her exclusive Sky Patrol hunt units could fight as a coordinated army instead of behaving like collections of individually powerful monsters. Su Yi immediately assigned Aoritas responsibility for aerial patrols and future large-scale formation combat. The second barracks was a Starlight Hall, which beyond Divine Evolution transformed into the Primal Chaos Starfall Sanctum. After upgrading it to level 3, Su Yi learned its aura allowed fallen units to return like stars and be reborn. The first recruitment created the cold, silver-haired heroine Delmas and her Doom Red Moon troops. Delmas represented pure destruction, ill omen, and the end of life rather than the playful chaos Su Yi associated with Lilith. Her exclusive legion existed for slaughter and plunder, making even the other heroines cautious around her. Su Yi personally welcomed Delmas and made clear that she belonged to the same family, despite the ominous nature of her power. The new branches raised Supreme Heaven to 6 god-tier barracks and gave it actual patrol, formation, and destruction specialists. Aeritas and Delmas also pushed Crystal Palace's harem rule further, because both impossible troop lines appeared exclusively female. That night, Su Yi used another unique treasure, the Divine Artifact Summoning Hall, which offered one free random summon each day. His first summon produced the Demon Sword Bloody Slaughter, an artifact carrying the residual will of an ancient evil god. The moment Su Yi touched it, murderous madness attacked his mind and nearly overwhelmed him. Delmas suppressed the evil divinity long enough for Su Yi to recover, proving once again why a lord should not casually trust powerful loot. He stored the demon sword inside the Divine King's vault, instead of using a weapon that could corrupt its owner. The incident corrected some of Su Yi's growing overconfidence, because Supreme Heaven's good luck had started making danger feel abstract. On the 7th morning, the system finally unlocked every rookie's dimensional rift authority. Each lord received one random rift opening per day, lasting long enough for either side to invade the other. A rift matched the lord's heart rank, but even a black iron world could contain an entire planet of enemies and resources. This was the real path to long-term development. After the beginner period ended and the daily void trial rewards disappeared, Su Yi performed his normal recruitment across all 6 barracks before preparing to test the system. The 6 branches now produced 180 god-tier women every day for a trivial gold cost. Before opening his own rift, Su Yi watched another rookie livestream the same feature and saw how quickly one unlucky roll could become a death sentence. That streamer commanded respectable lion men and had opened what appeared to be a barren yellow sand world. The sand suddenly erupted with an endless Ravager swarm, revealing that the apparently empty dimension was actually occupied by Zerg-like monsters. The streamer tried retreating, buying refresh cards, and recruiting emergency troops, but his new soldiers immediately sensed they had been created as sacrifices. Their loyalty collapsed while the swarm kept pouring through the two-way rift, turning his territory into an unwinnable defense. The broadcast eventually went black, and Suki understood the Lord's World had just demonstrated why dimensional exploration terrified ordinary rookies. Instead of being frightened, he found himself wishing the same swarm world had opened for Supreme Heaven. Numbers were the Ravagers' greatest advantage, and numbers were exactly what his immortal god-tier troops were designed to ignore. That realization set the stage for Su Yi's first real dimensional campaign. At the same time, Su Yi still had to preserve the SSS Void Trial schedule because those raiding chests remained the fastest source of rare wonders. He therefore treated dimensional exploration as an additional opportunity, rather than an excuse to abandon the safe daily resource cycle. Aridus, Delmas, and the older heroines were ordered to prepare complete formations, while Su Yi checked every revival and defensive layer protecting Supreme Heaven. For the first time, the domain was about to stop merely defending against worlds and begin choosing worlds it wanted to exploit. Before opening his own rift, Su completed the 7th Abyss trial, so every newly recruited unit could gain another round of experience. 30,000 bronze enemies entered Supreme Heaven and were erased without a single permanent casualty. The SS Clear pushed the newest soldiers upward while adding thousands of origin crystals and another mountain of bronze chests. Su Yi's also continued paying Lin Xiaxia in deliberately modest installments, maintaining the image of a strong but not impossible client. Once the trial rewards were secured, he gathered Lilith, Ishtar, Talus, Pangelia, Kesha, Aurides, and Delmas for the first expedition. Every heroine reacted with excitement because the combat branches had spent most of their existence waiting for a real campaign. Su Yi ordered each commander to assemble her own forces, while he prepared the dimensional gate and survival supplies. The gate opened into a technology-side black iron world, where civilization had already collapsed, and mutant creatures occupied ruined cities. Because Su Yi was the first lord to enter, the system synchronized basic world information directly to him. He learned that nobody had previously harvested the dimension, which made every city, ruined factory, and treasure chest effectively untouched. The technology alignment was not ideal for his mystical armies, but the untouched resources made the world too valuable to ignore. Su Yi anchored the dimension with his unique gate, so he could return even after the normal rift duration expired. He then used the gate's sealing ability to prevent outsiders from randomly entering and competing for the same world. That single move quietly converted an entire dimension into something close to supreme private hunting ground. Pangalia carried Su Yi, while Talus and the other heroines spread out to eliminate dangers around the initial landing zone. The dragons flattened threatening terrain. The angels and Valkyries took different directions, and the Gene Guards scanned for hidden enemies. Su Yi deliberately remained near the center, because he was still a lord, not a frontline hero who needed personal combat experience. His commanders received a simple order: level up, collect chests, avoid useless destruction, and report anything unusual. Lilith found a modern city packed with mutants and began clearing districts at extraordinary speed. She became one of the first heroes to reach Bronze 9-star after cutting through enormous concentrations of enemies. Pangalia treated the ruined urban landscape even more violently, using Annihilation Dragon Breath to erase entire monster-packed streets. During one sweep, she discovered a guarded silver chest and casually crushed the powerful mutant protecting it. Aeritas used the Sky Patrol Hunt's coordination to clear cities faster than any other branch. The Valkyries moved as a disciplined formation, proving why their barracks description emphasized legion warfare rather than individual duels. Delmas advanced through complete destruction, leaving virtually nothing alive in the zones assigned to her Doom Red Moon troops. Talus and the Gene Guards relied on tight teamwork, while Kesha's Holy Angels systematically purified hostile areas. Ishtar encountered the most disturbing discovery: an entire city that appeared to have fused with living flesh. The buildings, roads, and vehicles behaved like parts of one organism, while newly formed monsters emerged directly from its tissue. Ishtar tested the area and felt a hidden presence capable of threatening even a hero at her current level. She withdrew rather than taking unnecessary risk and returned to report the strange monster factory to Su Yi. Su Yi immediately forbade the others from approaching it until the army became stronger. A renewable source of bronze monsters could become an ideal training ground, but only after Supreme Heaven understood what was controlling the city. That decision showed how far Su Yi had moved from reckless rookie thinking. He wanted resources that could be exploited repeatedly, not dramatic victories that destroyed something valuable before its function was understood. Over several hours, the separated armies continued sweeping cities and returning with piles of treasure chests. Aoritas and the Sky Patrol Hunt became the first complete branch to reach Bronze 9-star. Lilith was irritated that the Fallen Sanctum's oldest troops had been beaten in overall Legion progress by a newer formation. Su Yi did not comfort her with empty praise, because the competition was exactly what Supreme Heaven needed. He allowed rivalry to sharpen training, as long as it never became sabotage or resentment toward the other commanders. The Gene Guards completed their advancement next, followed by Delmas's Destructive Legion and the remaining branches. By nightfall, every active unit under Su Yi had reached the Bronze 9-star limit, allowed by his current Lord's Heart. That result meant the next major Lord advancement could finally happen without sacrificing the following day's abyss clear. Before leaving, Su Yi ordered Aoritas to guard the still-open rift, so nothing from the mutant world could sneak into Supreme Heaven. The army had collected hundreds of low-rank dimensional chests, including one rare silver chest discovered by Pangalia. Su Yi opened the black iron chests first and received an almost insulting mix of tiny currency rewards and technology world curiosities. Some chests even produced large quantities of stockings and similar manufactured goods, making Su wonder what the world expected him to do with them. The strange drops were still useful evidence that dimensional loot reflected the civilization that originally existed in the conquered world. Bronze chests gave somewhat better currency and a production blueprint connected to the same technology ecosystem. The silver chest finally produced something important: a gene enhancement serum blueprint usable by technology research units. That serum could strengthen low-tier soldiers and potentially become a profitable product if production costs stayed low enough. Su Yi stored the blueprint because Supreme Heaven still lacked the proper research specialist to turn it into mass production. He then upgraded the physical territory again, expanding the domain without chasing the public ranking too aggressively. The next Abyss trial brought 40,000 bronze enemies and again ended with an SSS rating. Freshly recruited soldiers reached Bronze 9-star almost immediately because the existing army controlled the battlefield for them. Decomposition and chest opening produced another enormous stockpile of elemental crystals, metals, and resource cards. The final SSS chest contained a troop rank-up card, refresh and upgrade cards, and a faith statue blueprint. The rank-up card could push a normal Tier 10 soldier into a much higher rank. making it priceless to ordinary lords, but nearly useless to Su Yi. Every troop he owned already exceeded the card's restriction, so he stored it as a future trade asset instead of wasting it. The faith statue was more important strategically because it provided a path for collecting loyalty and converting it into divine faith. Ordinary lords struggled to generate faith because only perfect loyalty produced the highest return. Su Yi's armies all sat permanently at 100 loyalty, meaning a future statue could gather faith at sufficiency. Building it immediately was impossible because the material cost reached into millions of basic resources and huge amounts of currency. Su Yi therefore placed the divine path on hold and focused on a problem he could solve now: research and industrial production. Supreme Protocol finally rewarded that decision when a new recruitment produced the special hero Sia. Unlike Talus, Sia was not designed for direct combat and arrived without a normal dedicated legion. She was a mechanical creator whose strength depended on machines, research, modifications, and technological development. Her personal building, the Tech Research Institute, was required before most of her real abilities could function. Su Yi immediately understood that he had finally recruited the civil and research hero Supreme Heaven had been missing. Sia could study technology world blueprints, design new machinery, automate production, and potentially give Su Yi the public identity he wanted. She also recognized the gene guards as biological creations and casually revealed that she understood modification systems far beyond normal rookie science. Talus watched her cautiously, but Su Yi reminded both women that they were comrades serving the same empire. After completing the day's recruiting, Su Yi invested an enormous amount of stored wood, stone, metals, gold, and origin crystals into Sia's institute. The Tech Research Institute rose behind the barracks as a modern complex that looked completely alien beside cathedrals and dragon temples. Its first trait doubled development speed, its second doubled technology upgrades, and its third raised the rank of technological creations directly. The building consumed a painful amount of Su Yi's fortune, yet the benefits made the expense impossible to dismiss. CIS requested access to the warehouse and promised that the resources would become useful results rather than disappear into meaningless experiments. Su Yi granted her permission, while privately accepting that his research hero might become the most expensive woman in the territory. The investment also strengthened his plan to hide Supreme Heaven behind a technology side cover after the rookie period. A public domain filled with factories could explain rapid economic growth without revealing immortal fallen angels and primordial dragons. While Sia began working, the normal dimensional rift finally started closing much later than Su Yi expected. Checking the log revealed that reaching 1% exploration had automatically extended the rift by 12 hours. Su Yi had unknowingly earned extra time because his armies cleared enough of the world to cross that threshold. The final exploration rate reached roughly 3%, which triggered a basic black iron dimensional chest. Unlike ordinary treasure chests, a world contained only 4 major dimensional chests tied to exploration milestones. The basic chest belonged to the First Lord, exceeding 1%, with later chests reserved for far deeper exploration. Because Su Yi had sealed and anchored the world, those future milestones were now effectively waiting for Supreme Heaven. He opened the basic dimensional chest and received cyan technology blueprints for liquid robots and artificial intelligence. Sia learned both immediately and explained that the blueprints mainly saved her development time because she could eventually create solar systems herself. She estimated she could design corresponding factories within hours, a statement that finally showed Su Yi what a god-tier research hero actually meant. The mutant world had already paid for itself through levels, chests, blueprints, and a renewable flesh mystery. More importantly, it gave Su Yi a permanent private dimension where technology could be studied, exposing his main territory. Supreme Heaven now possessed both overwhelming mystical force and the beginnings of an industrial system capable of disguising that force. The so-called harem army had gained its first true engineer, and from Su Yi's perspective, that might prove more valuable than another battlefield goddess. Su Yi still had one problem before he could fully exploit Sia's work. His personal rank remained below the army's new ceiling. Every major branch was already waiting at Bronze 9-star, unable to advance further until the Lord's heart crossed into Bronze rank itself. That bottleneck meant the next upgrade would not simply strengthen Su Yi, it would unlock another entire growth cycle for hundreds of god-tier women. He delayed the breakthrough only long enough to finish organizing resources, factories, and the next dimensional target. At the same time, the newly discovered exploration rule made dimensional conquest far more profitable than any textbook explanation had suggested. Strong lords could earn extra hours, claim world-limited chests, and convert a single lucky rift into a long-term private resource base. Su Yi now intended to use that advantage on a second world, whose only remaining resource was something his armies valued even more than ore: endless enemies. Su Yi's next dimensional opportunity pointed toward the Yellow Sand world, where the unlucky Lion Man streamer had been destroyed by the Ravager swarm. The moment the rift opened, he recognized the landscape from the broadcast and confirmed that the entire dimension had been stripped nearly bare. The swarm had consumed vegetation, minerals, settlements, and almost every remaining trace of the civilization that once occupied the planet. To most lords, the world was a death trap with no economic value left. To Su Yi, it was an enormous training ground, containing exactly the kind of endless enemy numbers his armies could exploit. He anchored the coordinates with the dimensional gate and sealed the entire world, so other lords could no longer enter randomly. Penjalasa and several combat branches were ordered to guard the entrance rather than immediately chase every insect across the desert. Aradis soon discovered another rift inside the dying world, leading to a ruined territory that clearly belonged to the streamer from the broadcast. Su Yi crossed over and found collapsed towers, shattered defenses, ruined barracks, and virtually nothing the Ravagers had not already consumed. The Dead Lord's Tier 7 Orc Barracks was beyond recovery, proving the swarm had stripped even infrastructure for resources. The system nevertheless offered Su Yi the chance to occupy the ownerless domain. He chose to make it a subsidiary territory, instead of merging the ruins directly into Supreme Heaven. That decision gave him a second domain with its own panel, upgrades, and public potential, without exposing the real main base. The subsidiary territory could not inherit every Supreme Heaven entry, but Su Yi had obtained it for free and immediately saw strategic value. He planned to rebuild the second territory as his visible technology base once the rookie period ended. Visitors could inspect factories there and conclude that his mysterious wealth came from industry rather than divine armies. Supreme Heaven would remain hidden behind dimensional seals and future concealment abilities. After securing the ruined territory, Su Yi returned to the desert world and ordered 2 dragons to watch the closed rift. He suspected the swarm possessed some intelligent controller because the insects had stopped attacking blindly once the situation turned unfavorable. That intelligence did not matter yet because the dimensional gate's seal isolated the world from outside contact. If a creature inside could break that seal, it would already be far beyond anything capable of hiding from Su's current forces. The expedition ended without attempting a full purge because the Ravagers were more useful alive as an endless experience source. Back in Supreme Heaven, Su Yi continued his normal routine of recruitment, trials, and daily artifact summons. One summon produced a demon's contract, capable of granting 3 wishes through the power of a mysterious demon overlord. The description openly warned that free wishes carried hidden costs, so Su Yi stored the contract, rather than gambling with an unknown being. Another summon later produced the Golden Throne, a divine artifact so absurd that Su Yi initially thought the system was mocking him. While seated on it, his life state could be frozen, preventing death, even if only a final breath remained. The throne also nullified attacks below its defensive limit and projected an intimidation aura across the battlefield. Combined with the Immortal King's armor, Immortal Soul Jade, Chaos Spring, Revival Structures, and Divine King's Vault, Su Yi's personal survival became extremely layered. He still had no intention of fighting at the front, but assassinating the Lord behind Supreme Heaven was becoming increasingly unrealistic. Xia continued developing the Tech Research Institute, while Su Yi waited for the next wave of blueprints and production solutions. Her artificial intelligence project became a priority, because automated design and management could multiply the volume of every future factory. The first-dimensional world also remained anchored, allowing Xia to study technology that would otherwise disappear when the random rift closed. Su Yi upgraded Supreme Heaven's territory level gradually, never competing directly with the rookies' chasing level rankings. The highest-ranked territory was already approaching a major advancement threshold, but Su Yi considered premature expansion a distraction. He cared more about troop quality, resource reserves, and keeping the SSS Abyss cycle intact. Day 8 arrived with another 180 female god-tier units appearing across the 6 barracks. No new hero appeared, But the daily production alone meant Supreme Heaven's numbers were accelerating far faster than normal armies. Su Yi's combat reward pack happened to be weak that morning, reminding him that not every system reward would be spectacular. He therefore approached the divine artifact summoning Summus Hall more cautiously instead of assuming his luck could protect him from dangerous curios. The regular Abyss trial still mattered more than random gambling, because it provided predictable corpses, chests, and rank experience. When the trial started, Sui noticed the pressure increasing, even though his lord's heart had not changed recently. The Eternal World's difficulty naturally intensified as rookie days passed, ensuring nobody could simply stop progressing and farm forever. Supreme Heaven still crushed the invasion, but Su Yi began planning the next major breakthrough before silver enemies became common. The army's old branches were sitting at Bronze 9-star, while every new recruit rapidly caught up under protected battlefield conditions. That created the perfect moment to push the Lord's heart through several levels in one controlled sea. Before advancing, Su Yi reviewed his economic position and realized the territory held vast resource card wealth that could not easily be spent directly. He contacted Lin Xia and offered high-grade wood and stone cards she could distribute through the Apocalypse Merchant Guild network. She quoted a fair market price, taking a modest commission instead of trying to exploit the anonymous seller. Su Yi sent 600 high-grade cards, far more than Lin Xia expected one rookie to possess. After subtracting the debt he still owed her, the trade returned another large stack of origin crystals. The transaction strengthened both sides because Lin Xia gained profitable inventory, while Su converted excess materials into flexible currency. Su Yi also recognized that merchant monopolies made direct selling inefficient and politically dangerous. Trying to keep every percentage of profit would force him to compete with organizations that had operated for generations. Using Lin Xia as his channel sacrificed some margin, but bought distribution, information, and eventually political cover. That logic became central to Su Yi's post-rookie strategy. He needed a public explanation for his resources, a respected partner willing to vouch for him, and products valuable enough to keep that partner interested. Technology could provide all three without forcing him to expose god-tier barracks. Su Yi therefore decided future warehouse priorities would shift toward metals, elemental crystals, Matsumated factories, and mass-producible weapons. Lilith and the other mystical armies would gradually disappear from public view, even while they remained the real foundation of his power. The subsidiary territory would become the visible industrial domain where outsiders could see machines instead of fallen angels. Su Yi's personal background helped that deception, because he had been an ordinary orphan with no suspicious clan connection before Lord's Day. A miraculous technology talent looked far more believable than 6 secret god-tier barracks appearing from nowhere. The plan also reduced jealousy, because veteran lords generally viewed technology as useful, but ultimately limited compared with divine bloodlines. Su Yi did not believe that limitation applied to Xia, yet he was happy to let the outside world continue believing it. While he organized that cover, Yish faced a very different version of dimensional exploration. Trying to seize an early advantage, Yi Shio opened a rift with the intention of finding a resource-rich world before Su Yi could dominate the rankings. Instead, the gate connected to a demon world, and hostile creatures immediately poured toward his territory. His Dragon Slayer forces were powerful, but unlike Su Yi's troops, they could die permanently, grow tired, and lose loyalty under repeated losses. Yishio began spending Horded's resources on emergency recruitment cards while trying to survive the mandatory rift duration. His future knowledge could identify opportunities, yet it could not control which random world the Eternal Will opened. The contrast demonstrated the limitation of reincarnation information. Knowing what happened before did not guarantee events would repeat after the timeline changed. Su Yi's actions had already altered merchant relationships, ranking pressure, and resource availability around Yishio. Meanwhile, Supreme Heaven's development continued without depending on any remembered timeline. CISA Institute began producing the first practical framework for a technology economy, instead of merely studying exotic dimensional blueprints. Su Yi wanted weapons cheap enough for ordinary rookies, because the largest market was not rich heirs, but millions of struggling low-rank lords. High-end divine equipment might earn huge amounts per sale, but simple products could move in enormous volume. That commercial thinking matched Lin Xia's own instincts and gave their future partnership a natural foundation. Su Yi also kept buying refresh cards, upgrade cards, seeds, and any strange barracks she could source at reasonable prices. Every ordinary barracks had the possibility of becoming another god-tier structure through beyond divine evolution. That meant items other rookies viewed as mediocre could be worth an entire future legion to Supreme Heaven. The same was true of technology blueprints that CIA could improve beyond their original rank. Suyi's talent did not merely give him better rewards. It changed the value of almost every resource he touched. As the day progressed, Supreme Heaven looked peaceful from the inside, despite the amount of destructive power gathered there. Valkyries patrolled overhead. Dragons rested across the grassland. Holy angels trained beside fallen angels. And Gene guards maintained a constant protective perimeter. The strange coexistence had become normal enough that new recruits simply accepted rivals from opposing factions as members of the same domain. Crystal Palace continued applying invisibly to every summoning, ensuring the population remained entirely female. Regardless of Barracks' origin, Suyi still joked about harem mode, but the actual military result was a unified female empire with multiple resurrection systems and no loyalty instability. That stability freed him to focus on strategic problems. Ordinary lords spent most of their time managing. He did not have to fear mutiny, religious conflict, racial hatred, or faction-based desertion inside Supreme Heaven. Instead, he could plan dimensional expansion, industrialization, public identity, and eventual godhood. The next step required crossing the Lord's heart into bronze, so every existing heroine could finally break through the bronze 9-star wall. Suyi began gathering the crystals necessary to make that leap in one continuous push, rather than exposing the army to an awkward half-upgraded stage. Once the breakthrough happened, he intended to send nearly every combat branch into the sealed Ravager world and turn its endless swarm into experience. The world that had destroyed another rookie would become Supreme Heaven's private leveling field. That inversion captured the difference between Suyi and normal rookies. Danger itself became a resource, once his armies were strong enough to control it. He also understood that the more worlds he anchored, the less dependent Supreme Heaven would become on the random daily rift lottery. Private dimensions could supply experience, blueprints, subsidiary territories, and future materials, without alerting competitors in the public lord market. The only remaining constraint was Suyi's own rank, because his troops could never exceed the major rank limit tied to their lord. With resources finally prepared, he stopped delaying and moved toward the breakthrough that would unlock silver rank growth across his entire hidden empire. Before spending the crystals reserved for his bronze breakthrough, Suyi completed the next daily routine, because ignoring an abyss trial simply to level himself made no strategic sense. Day 9 began with another 180 recruits spread across the 6 god-tier barracks. Every newcomer female, because Crystal Palace still governed all recruitment inside Supreme Heaven. The headcount remained tiny beside ordinary mass armies, yet every branch now contained units whose potential, loyalty, and revival advantages made simple population comparisons almost meaningless. Suyi also opened the Divine Artifact Summoning Hall for its daily free draw, this time keeping Delmas nearby after too many previous summons had produced dangerous surprises. Blood-red light erupted from the altar, and the ominous pressure made even the destructive Red Moon heroine pay attention before an ancient parchment settled into Suyi's hands. The item was a curio called the Demon's Contract, supposedly written by a demon overlord, and capable of granting exactly 3 wishes to whoever dared invoke it. That description sounded generous until the warning beneath it reminded the owner that apparently free wishes always carried a price decided long before the request was spoken. Suyi had no interest in discovering what payment a demon overlord considered fair, so the contract went directly into personal storage instead of becoming another reckless shortcut. He would keep it only as a last resort option, because a suspicious emergency tool was still better than having nothing when every conventional escape route failed. After breakfast, he checked Lin Xiaxa's messages and found that she had continued collecting the refresh cards and Barracks upgrade cards he repeatedly asked her to watch for. Suyi still needed crystals, so he sold her another large batch of high-grade wood and stone resource cards rather than exposing rarer materials from his private dimensions. The prevailing market value hovered around 100 crystals per card, while Lin Xiaxa offered 90 and openly kept the remaining margin for her trading network. Suyi accepted because 9,000 clean origin crystal mattered more than squeezing every last percentage point from a sale that could attract unwanted attention. The deal also reinforced a relationship he increasingly viewed as strategic infrastructure rather than simple commerce, since one merchant could eventually provide materials, channels, and political cover together. Trying to dominate every market personally would force Su Yi into direct competition with established guilds that possessed deeper networks, older backers, and far more experience, tracing profitable suppliers. A technology-side public identity offered the opposite advantage. Visible factories could explain future income, while the truly dangerous angels, dragons, Valkyries, and star troops remained hidden elsewhere. Complete disappearance would eventually become suspicious in its own way, because powerful factions would wonder why no divination, scout, merchant, or visitor could ever locate a rapidly rising lord. Su Yi therefore wanted outsiders to discover something believable when they searched, just never the supreme heaven that actually contained his god-tier barracks and divine military foundation. With that long-term disguise in mind, he ended the chat and prepared for the Abyss Void trial, expecting another routine, clear despite the system's steadily increasing invasion numbers. The first warning came almost immediately when the dark mist produced several thousand enemies within minutes, far faster than the previous day's pace. Despite no recent Lord's Heart upgrade, Bronze Nine's Dawnstar demons poured across the domain in dense waves, only to collide with fallen angels, holy angels, dragons, Gene Guards, Valkyries, and Delmas's destructive Star Legion. Supreme Heaven held without panic, but Su Yi noticed the numbers kept climbing. Instead of stabilizing at the previous progression curve he had already learned to expect. By the final minutes, the invasion count had reached roughly 80,000, more than enough to erase a conventional rookie territory through exhaustion, even before a true commander appeared. Then black fire condensed inside the mist, and a silver one-star Abyss Flame Demon walked through. An opponent one entire major rank above Su Yi's current Black Iron level. The demon initially advanced with confidence, but that expression collapsed after it saw the corpse-covered battlefield and recognized the concentrations of god-tier bloodlines waiting inside the territory. It faced original sin-fallen angels, pure blood darkness, holy angels, black gold dragons, Gene Guards, Valkyries, and Red Moon forces, whose combined aura made retreat suddenly look reasonable. Pangelia denied that option by descending in her 8-winged dragon form, pinning the silver demon beneath one claw before it could turn the surprise into any useful resistance. A point-blank annihilation breath finished the intruder almost instantly, proving that rank suppression mattered only when the supposedly lower-ranked side did not possess monsters like the Doom Ultimate Dragon. The trial ended with 0 permanent losses and roughly 80,000 enemies destroyed, earning another SSS evaluation. Despite an invasion that would have looked catastrophic anywhere else, Su Yi was less excited by the rating than by its implication. The Eternal World appeared to be increasing his abyss pressure beyond the ordinary schedule without asking permission. Tomorrow could therefore be worse, even if he continued delaying conventional territory growth, making raw strength and layered revival increasingly important rather than optional luxuries. The SSS reward chest contained practical cards, including refresh, upgrade, and troop rank-up items, but one rare card immediately stood above those familiar resources. It was a hero recruitment card, a treasure capable of producing a hero directly from whichever barracks received it, instead of relying on the ordinary recruitment lottery. That created an unusually difficult decision because Su Yi now possessed 6 god-tier barracks, and any one of them could turn a guaranteed hero into a major strategic branch. Using the card immediately would strengthen something, yet using it carelessly could waste the chance to obtain a researcher, commander, or special lineage, unavailable through normal roles. He stored the card for later discussion instead of pretending there was value in making a fast decision, merely because the reward looked exciting. The same chest also produced a unique territorial wonder called the World Guarding Great Wall, whose description read less like a fortification and more like a collection of cheats. Once fused with Supreme Heaven, the wall became indestructible as long as the territory itself survived, and it could remain hidden rather than announcing its presence to observers. Its iron-blooded effect prevented troop morale from collapsing in battle, ensuring defenders would continue fighting even after losses that normally shattered an army's willingness to obey. Another trait suppressed spatial and temporal instability, while protecting the domain from natural disasters, stacking naturally with the bulwark of size already reinforcing Supreme Heaven's boundary. The wall also accelerated recovery of stamina, mana, and spiritual energy, giving long defensive battles a completely different endurance profile from ordinary siege warfare. Its most extreme emergency effect removed recruitment limits once casualties exceeded half the territory's forces, allowing desperate replacement recruitment when a normal lord would already be collapsing. Finally, the structure expanded automatically as the territory grew, preventing Su Yi from paying an ever-increasing construction tax, merely to keep later borders protected. He bound the wonder immediately, but kept its visible manifestation concealed, adding another invisible defensive layer beneath the peaceful grassland appearance outsiders might someday be allowed to see. The reward confirmed the pattern shaping Supreme Heaven. Every new system overlapped with an older one, so no single failure point had to carry the entire territory alone. Revival came from multiple barracks and the Hall of Heroes. Personal survival came from artifacts and healing wonders, while barriers now combined Bulwark of Size with the Great Wall. Sui next visited CIA's Tech Research Institute, where Artificial Intelligence Zero greeted him automatically and directed him toward the mechanical creator's third-floor work area. Sia had spent the night turning Sui's request for cheap, practical products into actual blueprints, instead of wasting time chasing impressive technology no rookie could afford. The completed designs included a Spirit Source rifle, a Spirit Source grenade, a Spirit Source robot, and a basic alloy automated factory that could feed later production chains. None looked glamorous beside divine artifacts, which was exactly why Su Yi liked them. Ordinary lords could understand the value immediately and potentially purchase them in enormous volume. The rifle combined common metals, wood and origin crystals into a bronze weapon that generated its own spirit-powered ammunition, instead of requiring a separate conventional supply chain. Su Yi produced 10 prototypes, tested their balance and statistics, then named the model Type S1 because it represented the first standardized weapon line, carrying his industrial signature. The grenade design used only small amounts of origin energy and attribute crystals, allowing the same factory to create fire per freezing, thunder, gravity, or other elemental variants. That flexibility mattered more than raw rank, because a cheap consumable tailored to an enemy weakness could save a weak rookie territory from a fight its barracks could not handle. The robot line produced roughly human-sized metal workers with Tier 3 strength, enough to mine, chop wood, haul supplies, defend factories, or self-destruct when a position became impossible to hold. Su Yi saw the machines as labor first and soldier second, because every mechanical worker freed living troops from jobs that contributed nothing to combat progression. The basic alloy factory completed the loop by converting common resources into standardized material, reducing dependence on rare chest drops for every future mechanical project. CI Su's speed impressed Sui more than the products themselves. The God-tier research heroine had translated vague commercial requirements into working industrial designs within a single night. Her Tech Research Institute doubled development and upgrade efficiency while increasing the effective rank of technological creations, turning low-cost engineering into a scalable advantage rather than a side hobby. Artificial Intelligence Zero handled routine management, meaning Sia could remain focused on invention instead of spending her time supervising assembly lines and warehouse counts. Su Yi ordered initial production rather than mass saturation. Because prototypes needed market feedback before, he committed scarce crystals to thousands of units no customer had yet agreed to buy. He also kept the earlier liquid robot blueprint in reserve, since Tier 10 mechanical units were powerful, but required resources far beyond what the average rookie could spend. A lower-end product that sold to 10,000 ordinary lords could fund more growth than a luxury machine admired by a handful of wealthy heirs. That same principle guided construction inside the subsidiary territory, which Su Yi intended to transform into an industrial park, visible enough to support his public technology lord identity. The ruined domain itself inherited none of Supreme Heaven's best entries or wonders, making it safer to expose because visitors would not automatically sense the impossible advantages hidden elsewhere. Factories, robots, warehouses, and standardized weapons could explain Su Yi's income without explaining why his anonymous combat ranking remained so absurdly high. Before committing to full industrial expansion, however, he still needed to remove the major rank ceiling, trapping every combat branch at Bronze 9-star. Su returned to the Lord's Heart interface and checked the crystals he had accumulated through trials, dimensional, exploration, decomposition, trade, and the merchant sale completed that morning. He could finally push several levels in one continuous sequence, instead of raising the heart once, exposing a temporary weakness, then waiting days for the next batch of materials. The upgrade consumed 600 origin crystals, then 700, 800, and 900, as the diamond-shaped mark on his wrist changed with each step. Warm power reinforced his body repeatedly until the mark finally crossed the threshold and shone with the unmistakable radiance of Bronze 1 star. The rank up did more than strengthen Su Yi. It immediately raised the maximum progression ceiling of every troop bound to his territory from Bronze into the Silver range. That meant the hundreds of heroines waiting at Bronze 9 star could finally convert the experience they had been wasting into another full major rank climb. The system also announced something Su Yi had not expected. Supreme Sovereign awakened a second trait when its owner entered Bronze rank. The new trait was called Supreme Fate, and its function fit the direction of Su Yi's strategy almost too perfectly to be coincidence. No being could deduce, locate, or discover his true territory through him, unless Su Yi personally allowed that connection to be perceived. Divination, tracing, destiny calculation, and similar investigative methods therefore lost the ability to turn Su Yi himself into a road leading straight toward supreme heaven. The trait did not require him to vanish socially. Instead, it let him choose what observers were permitted to connect, making the subsidiary territory far more useful as controlled misinformation. Su Yi could now maintain a visible industrial address while denying anyone the hidden causal link that would reveal his real command domain behind it. Supreme Fate also made private dimensions safer, because an enemy could not simply calculate Su Yi's secrets and follow the answer backward into every world he had anchored. Combined with the Dimensional Gate's sealing power, the talent transformed secrecy from a temporary rookie trick into a system that could survive contact with much stronger future factions. Su Yi laughed, because the timing could not have been better. He had spent days constructing a false public identity, and the talent now protected the truth underneath it. With the Bronze breakthrough complete, he stopped studying concealment long enough to open the Dimensional Gate toward the Yasello Sand Ravager world. That dimension had already destroyed another rookie lord and stripped nearly every natural resource from its landscape. But Supreme Heaven wanted precisely what remained: endless, hostile bodies. Su Yi ordered nearly every combat branch through the gate, leaving only rotating holy angels and necessary guards behind, while Asiya remained with the Research Institute. Lilith led Original Sin fallen angels into the swarm. Ishtar followed with pure-blood darkness, and Pangelia's dragons entered as mobile engines of mass destruction. Aoritas brought the Sky Patrol hunt Valkyries. Talus deployed Gene Guards. Kesha organized Holy Support, and Delmas took her destructive Red Moon Legion into the same battlefield. The instruction was simple: slaughter Ravagers, collect chests, plunder anything useful, and do not return permanently until each branch had pushed into Silver rank. Because the world was sealed, no competing lord could interrupt the campaign, claim local rewards, or discover that Supreme Heaven was using a catastrophe as a private training field. Ravager numbers became a benefit rather than providing dense targets continuously enough for God-tier troops to convert potential into actual progression without searching city by city. Resurrection reduced the cost of mistakes, perfect loyalty prevented morale collapse, and the Great Wall protected the home domain while most of its strongest forces operated elsewhere. Su Yi remained behind as the Dimensional Gate pulsed with distant battle energy, suddenly surrounded by a territory far quieter than the one he had built over the previous 9 days. He used that silence to inspect Supreme Fate again and finalize the principle governing his post-rookie survival plan. Outsiders should see enough truth to stop searching for the rest. The public Su Yi would be a talented technology lord with a hidden location ability, automated factories, useful equipment, and an increasingly valuable relationship with professional merchants. The real Su Yi would command multiple god-tier mystical legions, private worlds, revival structures, divine artifacts, and a female army whose origins nobody outside Supreme Heaven needed to understand. That division was not cowardice. It was operational security learned from a previous life, built around surviving threats stronger than the information available at first contact. Every unnecessary reveal created another method an enemy could prepare against, while every believable cover story bought time for Supreme Heaven to reach the point where preparation no longer mattered. Su, therefore, treated the Bronze breakthrough not as a public milestone worth celebrating, but as permission to accelerate everything he still intended to keep hidden. The harem mode joke had now produced a military system capable of disappearing behind factories while its gorgeous heroines leveled inside a sealed world full of endless prey. By the time those legions returned at silver rank, Su Yi intended the outside market to be looking in the opposite direction, at machines, prices, and an ordinary technology business. The first reports from the Ravager world arrived within minutes, confirming that the bronze breakthrough had changed the campaign more dramatically than Su Yi expected. Lilith's original Sin Legion stopped treating ordinary swarm clusters as battles and began moving from concentration to concentration, using resurrection security to maintain an almost uninterrupted offensive rhythm. Ishtar's pure-blood fallen angels created stable zones of primordial darkness, where approaching Ravagers lost momentum, before disciplined formations cut them apart, without wasting pursuit time. Pangelia's dragon branch advanced fastest whenever the swarm gathered densely, because a single annihilation breath could erase enough enemies to replace hours of ordinary hunting. Aeritas used dragon-scaled Pegasi to keep the Valkyries mobile above the shifting sand, striking cyclic concentrations and relocating before larger swarms could trap the formation. Talus treated the campaign like a live laboratory, watching how light-dark dragon gene guards switched armaments and liberation modes when different Ravager types forced rapid tactical adaptation. Kesha's holy angels provided recovery, ordered defense, and replacement guards, proving that the branch's value increased when other legions were operating far from Supreme Heaven's fixed structures. Delmas required the least supervision because the Doom Red Moon lineage naturally prospered in a world where nearly every direction contained something hostile that could be destroyed. Su Yi rotated units once they crossed desired thresholds, preventing one branch from absorbing experience that could instead push another God-tier legion toward the same silver progression. The operation turned the dead streamer's nightmare into controlled military training, a reversal only possible because Su Yi possessed rank, revival, sealing, and command advantages the original victim lacked. Ravagers also dropped chests and decomposition resources, but Su Yi classified those rewards as secondary because the swarm world's true renewable asset was enemy density rather than material wealth. The earlier technology world played a different role, offering ruins, blueprints, mutant monsters, untouched cities, and the flesh city that Ishtar deliberately left intact for later investigation. Supreme Heaven remained the hidden command core. The technology world became a private research and hunting dimension, and the subsidiary territory became the visible industrial layer outsiders might eventually visit. 3 locations now performed 3 separate functions before the rookie month had even finished, reducing the danger of forcing every strategic activity into one vulnerable piece of land. Su Yi also understood that specialization created fallback options. If a public factory domain was compromised, the enemy still would not automatically possess his army, research worlds, or true heartland. Supreme Fate made that compartmentalization far stronger, because even divination could not connect the visible industrial territory back to Supreme Heaven without Su Yi's permission. While the legions leveled, Sia and Zero expanded the production test inside the subsidiary territory, instead of waiting for combat units to return. The first Type S1 rifle batches confirmed that common wood metals and origin crystals could be transformed into reliable ranged weapons without depending on specialized ammunition factories. Each rifle regenerated spirit-powered rounds at steady state, giving weak units a way to maintain ranged pressure even when their native barracks had never produced an archer. The Type S1 grenade line proved even more flexible because replacing the attribute crystal changed the effect without requiring Sia to design an entirely new weapon family. Fire variants handled clustered flesh targets, freezing variants created control opportunities, and other elemental crystals could support gravity, thunder, or specialized effects when buyers needed them. Su Yi deliberately avoided using rare materials in the standard recipes, since the product's commercial strength depended on repeatable production rather than a statistic impressive enough for one screenshot. The Spirit Source robot line filled the labor gap, producing metal workers around human height, with enough strength for mining, logging, hauling, factory defense, and emergency combat. The self-destruct function gave even a cheap utility machine battlefield value, though Su Yi considered sacrificing productive equipment a last resort rather than its primary selling point. Basic alloy factories supported all three product lines by converting common resources into standardized industrial material that SIA could later use as a foundation for stronger designs. The earlier liquid robot blueprint remained shelved because a Tier 10 machine required far too much high-grade material to serve as a beginner market product. Su wanted the first public catalog to make ordinary lords think they had found affordable help, not wonder which hidden empire could casually manufacture high-end war machines. That distinction became part of the subsidiary territory's architecture, with simple factories and warehouses taking priority over anything that resembled Supreme Heaven's divine wonders. Type S1 robots handled much of the construction labor, meaning Su Yi did not need to move obvious angelic or dragon units into the public domain just to raise walls. Zero could coordinate repetitive tasks through the automated steps, leaving CIA free to keep improving recipes, production speed, and the next generation of practical equipment. Su Yi approved experiments with stronger alloys and specialized models but ordered the entry-level line preserved, because a mass market disappeared the moment every upgrade made products unaffordable. Later, he could maintain two catalogs, cheap standardized equipment for millions of rookies, and on-brand design for guilds wealthy enough to pay for custom performance. That plan required distribution, however, and Su Yi knew a hidden manufacturer attempting to reach millions of buyers alone would expose more information than the profit justified. Lin Xiaosha therefore became increasingly important even before either side formally discussed a partnership. Because she already possessed channels, Su Yi had no reason to rebuild from zero. She continued sourcing Barracks refresh cards, upgrade cards, seeds, and strange structures while accepting Su Yi's resource sales without demanding explanations he had no intention of providing. Su Yi deliberately repaid earlier credit in measured amounts rather than unloading one impossible pile of crystals that would reveal how wealthy the anonymous #1 lord had become. On one trade, he supplied hundreds of high-grade wood and stone cards, letting Lin Xiaosha keep a reasonable cut, while he recovered thousands of origin crystals cleanly. The transaction demonstrated why professional merchants mattered. Su Yi converted excess trial rewards into liquid resources, without publicly posting quantities that would make Rookie Chat investigate the seller. He also watched how Lin Xiaosha priced the cards, noting that major guilds could crush sellers after the beginner period if independents lacked enough backing to resist forced discounts. Trying to keep 100% of every deal could therefore cost Su Yi the entire business later, because profit without protection only created a richer target. His preferred solution was mutual dependence, where the merchant earned enough from his production to defend the relationship, and Su Yi supplied products competitors could not easily copy. Sia's factory blueprint strengthened that possibility, because several designs were her own research rather than chest rewards that another lucky lord could duplicate by finding the same item. Even knowing the materials would not let a rival reproduce the machinery, unless that rival possessed comparable research talent and the same supporting institute. Su Yi began thinking of technological exclusivity as another defensive layer, less dramatic than a Great Wall, but equally useful in preventing a price war from destroying his cover identity. Elsewhere, Yishio's attempt to exploit future knowledge was producing the opposite result, because the dimensional rift he opened connected not to a remembered treasure world, but to demons. He had even tried a ridiculous luck ritual, involving arranged gold and ceremonial bows, after recalling old comments about lucky first rift openings from the previous timeline. The ritual changed nothing. Sulfurous air poured through the gate, and lesser demons charged directly into his territory. Before Yishio could begin the expedition he had imagined, his Dragon Slayer champions killed many attackers, yet the two-way nature of dimensional rifts meant opening a hostile world forced him into defense, whether he liked the destination or not. Bronze-ranked demons eventually joined the pressure, transforming what should have been a resource expedition into an expensive endurance fight against enemies that at least understood fear. Yishio began purchasing refresh recruitment cards at inflated prices because he needed bodies immediately, burning resources he had saved specifically for future remembered opportunities. That emergency recruitment created another problem Su Yi rarely had to consider. Troops born into a losing battle understood the danger immediately and did not automatically trust the lord who summoned them. Deaths, exhaustion, and repeated desperate orders pushed loyalty downward, making every additional casualty threaten the cohesion of the units still alive. King's authority helped Yishio maintain command, but it could not imitate Supreme Sovereign's permanent 100 loyalty or the multiple revival layers protecting Su Yi's forces. The contrast showed why troop quality alone never explained a territory's resilience. Command mechanics, its replacement economics, morale, and recovery could matter more than the first battle statistic. Yishio's future knowledge still contained enormous value, but every altered relationship made the old timeline less reliable, as a map for events he had assumed would repeat exactly. Lin Xiaosha had already blacklisted him after his arrogant approach. Market resources were flowing differently, and the anonymous combat champion had developed along an unexpected path. Even the Rift disaster forced Yishio to ask whether an opportunity remembered from 10 years later could remain unchanged after a reincarnator began interfering from day one. He survived only through substantial strength and stored resources, but the victory left his territory depleted rather than enriched, the opposite return he wanted from dimensional exploration. Sui never learned the full extent of Yishio's frustration. Yet his own strategy naturally avoided the same dependence by treating every reward and world as new information. He tested what appeared, integrated what worked, sealed what was dangerous, and stored treasures whose price he did not yet understand, rather than forcing them into immediate use. The demon's contract remained untouched for exactly that reason, sitting beside other extreme items whose value did not justify experimenting with an unknown supernatural cost. The demon sword Bloody Slaughter had received similar treatment after nearly corrupting Su Yi with the residual madness attached to its life-plundering power. Delmas had suppressed that influence before it could take hold, and the weapon went into the Divine King's vault instead of becoming a permanent part of Su Yi's equipment. The Golden Throne represented the opposite category, a divine artifact whose strongest traits increased survival without demanding an obvious hidden sacrifice. While seated, Su Yi's life state could effectively freeze even at the edge of death. Attacks beneath the artifact's limit could be nullified, and its intimidation aura affected battlefields. He valued those effects not because he wanted to fight from a chair, but because assassinating the Lord remained one of the simplest ways to collapse a territory, regardless of army size. The Immortal Soul Jade, Immortal King Armor, Chaos Spring, Golden Throne, Divine King's Vault, and loyal heroines together turned personal survival into another deliberately redundant system. That thinking also explained why Su Yi kept the hero recruitment card, instead of immediately feeding it to the barracks that looked strongest in the current ranking. Supreme Protocol tempted him because another research-oriented hero could strengthen the public technology strategy, while every mystical branch offered equally powerful military possibilities. The same restraint applied to Barracks upgrade cards, which he considered more valuable later, when material requirements became difficult or impossible to satisfy through normal rookie trading. Cheap resources could solve current upgrades, so consuming universal shortcut cards now would exchange future flexibility for speed. Supreme Heaven did not actually need. Refresh recruitment cards were different because they immediately converted 1 gold recruitment into more Godner soldiers, while Spend Freely guaranteed that absurd cost advantage permanently. Su Yi kept buying those aggressively, understanding that every card effectively multiplied the value of 6 God-tier barracks, rather than merely adding ordinary bodies. Crystal Palace continued filtering every result into female troops, while doubling their strength and raising potential, ensuring even expansion followed the bizarre harem mode restriction automatically. The joke no longer bothered Su Yi, because the practical result was obvious. Every new branch entered a domain where loyalty conflicts, faction hatred, and recruitment expense were already neutralized. Fallen angels could train beside holy angels. Dragons could share territory with Gene Guards, and Valkyries could cooperate with Delmas, without old racial or doctrinal hostility becoming mutiny. That unity gave the army something Yishio's desperate reinforcements lacked. Every soldier knew the Lord's will sat above faction identity from the instant she appeared. Combat ranking updates reflected the difference, even when the public could not understand it, with the anonymous first-place score jumping by amounts that repeatedly restarted speculation. Most rookies assumed technology had to be responsible because mass-produced machines seemed like the only plausible method for accumulating combat power at that speed. Sui found the theory useful and never corrected anyone, allowing strangers to build the exact public explanation he eventually planned to adopt. Territory rankings mattered far less to him. so he continued upgrading cautiously, instead of racing visible leaders, whose domains expanded simply to secure a temporary leaderboard position. Every increase in territory size enlarged the perimeter that needed defense and could scale trial pressure, making reckless level chasing a liability rather than proof of competence. Supreme Heaven could remain visually modest while its individual soldiers became stronger. Its private worlds expanded, and its production network accumulated inventory outside the main domain. Suyi preferred invisible compounding over public milestones because the rookie ranking reward was temporary, while avoiding divine attention could determine whether he survived long enough to collect future rewards. Back in the Ravager world, the first silver-ranked returns began appearing, as branches reached the threshold and rotated home for rest or reassignment. Fallen angels came back with armor scarred but morale untouched, while resurrection meant losses that should have been permanent. Instead, became another cost the territory could absorb. Valkyries reported improved coordination after repeated high-density engagements, and their aerial command structure made them especially suitable for future patrols across multiple connected worlds. Gene Guards returned with better practical control over their inherited light, darkness, dragon, and original sin factors, proving Talus's hybrid design remained stable under real pressure. Pangelia's dragon forces brought back the least subtle evidence, carrying chests and trophies from battlefields, where wide stretches of sand had been transformed by annihilation attacks. Delmus's branch gained levels through destruction so naturally that Suyi quietly marked the Ravager world as one of her best future training environments. Keisha kept rotating holy angels between the home gate and front lines, ensuring Supreme Heaven was never completely stripped of defensive manpower, even during aggressive campaigns. The system worked because Suyi treated the world as a managed resource rather than a place that needed to be conquered completely in one heroic expedition. Leaving the swarm alive preserved future experience, just as leaving the flesh city intact preserved a dangerous but potentially valuable target inside the mutant technology dimension. Suyi increasingly saw worlds in terms of functions: enemy farms, technology vaults, public factories, hidden headquarters, supply zones, and future strategic depth. That perspective was already far beyond the ordinary rookie question of whether one barracks could survive tomorrow's monster attack. Yet he refused to become careless, because the same dimensional system that offered unlimited opportunity could still throw an enemy far beyond his current rank through a random gate. Supreme Fate reduced discovery risk, not combat risk, and no concealment talent could rescue a lord who opened the wrong dimension and lacked the strength to close the consequences. Suyi's advantage remained preparation: 6 god-tier branches, layered revival, sealed worlds, cheap recruitment, industrial production, and enough patience to refuse tempting moves that served no current purpose. By the time the Silver campaign stabilized, the Hidden Empire had grown stronger, without changing the simple public fact that almost nobody knew where its real territory existed. The next question was no longer whether Suyi could manufacture equipment, but when releasing that equipment would create the greatest profit and the strongest political shield at the same time. With the Silver campaign running in the background, Suyi finally had enough breathing room to think about how the rookie period would look from an outsider's perspective. Supreme Heaven itself could never become the reception area, because one visitor seeing even a fraction of its barracks would immediately understand that the Technology Lord story was false. The subsidiary industrial territory solved that problem by presenting exactly what Suyi wanted discovered: factories, robots, warehouses, common materials, and no obvious mystical army. Supreme Fate completed the deception by preventing investigators from using Suyi as a bridge toward coordinates he had not chosen to reveal. After the beginner protection ended, he could invite selected partners into the industrial domain and let their own eyes confirm a carefully limited version of his development. A witness from a major merchant guild would be especially valuable because other factions trusted profitable professional observations more than anonymous claims made by a suspicious rookie. Lin Xiaosha fit that role naturally, but Suyi wanted the relationship to become economically important before asking her to place reputation behind his public identity. He therefore reviewed the Type S1 inventory and estimated how much production the automated lines could sustain, without draining crystals needed for barracks, trials, or future Lord's Heart upgrades. Rifles consumed basic materials predictably. Grenades required only small elemental inputs, and robots cost more but could repay themselves through labor before ever entering combat. The product mix gave customers three different reasons to buy: range damage, emergency burst effects, and permanent workforce expansion. Su Yi liked that none of those reasons depended on customers knowing his personal strength, because the business could grow even while the seller remained strategically unremarkable. Factories continued accumulating small batches rather than flooding storage, allowing Sia to correct production issues before the final rookie market rush transformed mistakes into thousands of defective units. Zero recorded consumption, output, and warehouse movement automatically, giving Su Yi something his mystical branches rarely needed: precise industrial data rather than battlefield intuition. Sia kept improving the process while refusing to waste research time on cosmetic changes that did nothing for function, cost, or repeatability. Sui encouraged that attitude because his first commercial goal was not elegance. It was equipment a frightened low-rank lord could afford after losing half a force. The Type S1 rifle's self-replenishing spirit ammunition made the sales pitch simple even without advertising language. Buy one weapon and stop worrying about ordinary ammunitionist supply. The grenade line could be explained just as easily, since customers only needed to match an elemental version to the battlefield problem they expected to face. Robots appealed to territories short on labor, especially lords whose combat units were too valuable to spend entire days cutting trees or hauling ore. None of the three products competed directly with a barracks, which meant buyers could improve existing forces instead of replacing the troop system they had already invested in. That made the technology useful across factions, races, and classes, dramatically increasing the potential market, compared with equipment restricted to one magical lineage. Su Yi's also kept the liquid robot design private, because revealing Tier 10 machines during the rookie period would destroy the carefully ordinary image created by the cheaper Type S1 line. High-end technology could wait until his public organization possessed enough history that stronger products looked like natural research progress rather than evidence of a hidden god-tier hero. The same logic applied to the stocking factory Sia had earlier improved from a low-grade blueprint. An amusing side business that proved the Institute could upgrade ordinary civilian production too. Su Yi had built that factory inside the subsidiary domain, where silk and origin crystals could support automated production whenever commercial demand justified spending the resources. He refused to run it heavily while crystals remained tight, because novelty goods ranked far below army recruitment, territorial defense, and weapon inventory on the rookie survival budget. That decision illustrated how quickly his situation had changed. A lord who once treasured 100 starting gold now had to choose between multiple entire industrial sectors. So resources still felt scarce, because every new god-tier system created another place where thousands of crystals could disappear productively. 6 barracks needed recruitment and upgrades. Private dimensions needed anchors and exploration. Factories needed inputs, and wonders created construction costs that ordinary rookies never faced. Su Yi therefore treated commerce as the solution to a scaling problem, rather than a hobby, designed to make an already rich lord feel richer. If factories could convert common wood, ore, and origin crystals into products sold at a reliable premium, Supreme Heaven would gain a renewable economy independent of chest luck. That economy also made spend freely more dangerous in the long term, because permanent one-gold troop recruitment meant excess cash could support equipment and infrastructure instead of disappearing into barracks fees. Every refresh card purchased by Lin Xiaosha's network could then become hundreds of times more valuable in Su Yi's hands than in the hands of a normal lord. The merchant did not know that multiplication existed, which preserved the most important asymmetry in their relationship. She understood the products without understanding the engine behind them. Su Yi checked the combat ranking while waiting for another production report and found the anonymous first-place position, still far enough ahead to keep rookie chat arguing. Some users insisted the mystery lord possessed mechanical swarms, others guessed a dragon family heir, and a few claimed the ranking system itself had probably malfunctioned. Su Yi ignored all of them, because every wrong theory increased the number of directions future investigators would waste time searching. His visible technology identity could even absorb the mechanical swarm rumor later, giving observers a satisfying explanation, without proving anything about the divine legions actually responsible. Yishio watched the same ranking from a far less comfortable position after surviving his demon world rift at enormous cost. The surviving Dragon Slayer champions had become hardened veterans, but the resources consumed to keep the territory alive erased much of the advantage Yishio expected from early dimensional exploration. His remembered timeline told him where certain future opportunities should appear, yet it could not refund recruitment cards already burned, because one random gate opened badly. That experience made the anonymous leader even more frustrating, since Yishio could not understand how someone supposedly following the same rookie rules kept increasing power without visible setbacks. He still believed future knowledge would eventually let him reverse the gap, but each altered event reduced confidence that remembered opportunities would remain uncontested or even unchanged. Sui had no need to monitor that private struggle. He was already busy solving a more immediate question about when the first large technology sale should begin. Lin Xiaosha contacted him again while he was reviewing inventory, asking whether the anonymous otherworld traveler still possessed resource cards or any other goods worth moving. Su Yi had largely exhausted the cards he wanted to sell, but the message reminded him that the Type S1 prototypes were now mature enough for a professional merchant's evaluation. Instead of describing them with hype, he sent direct statistic images for the rifle, grenade, and robot so Xiaosha could judge the products exactly as a buyer would. Her response came almost instantly, and with far more excitement than the restrained merchant tone she usually maintained during ordinary resource negotiations. She had seen stronger technology before through her background, but stronger was irrelevant when almost nobody in the rookie period could manufacture even this level of standardized equipment. The Type S1 line occupied the profitable gap between primitive starter gear and elite technology, too expensive for the majority of new lords. Lin Xiaosha's first concern was not performance but price, which immediately confirmed to Suez that she understood the market rather than simply admiring attractive statistics. She warned that even excellent equipment became worthless inventory if ordinary buyers had to spend more crystals than their entire territory could generate. Many merchants would raise prices because supply was rare, but rarity did not create money inside customers' pockets, especially before rookies had established stable economies. Sui deliberately asked what she would do instead of revealing his own pricing plan, using the answer to test whether their commercial instincts truly aligned. Lin Xiaosha advised him not to launch the main sale immediately, even though scarcity meant the equipment could already command a strong premium. She recommended waiting another 11 days until the beginner period entered its final 10-day countdown, and survival pressure pushed rookies into their last major spending wave. By day 20, most competent lords would have spent the first two-thirds of protection gathering resources, then begin burning those reserves to maximize the final settlement ranking. Weapons capable of raising combat power quickly would become far more attractive during that sprint, especially to lords sitting just below a reward threshold or struggling with late trials. Lin Xiaosha told Su Yi to spend the waiting period, producing as much inventory as practical instead of competing for early buyers with smaller budgets. She even offered to buy the entire stock back at double the agreed price if her market predictions failed and the products could not find buyers. That guarantee caught Su Yi's attention because it placed real risk on her side, rather than asking him to trust a confident forecast with no consequence for the advisor. Her timing also matched the standard rookie pattern Su Yi understood from broader Lord World behavior: accumulate for roughly 20 days, then explode during the final 10. He accepted the delay and ordered Sia's production system to prioritize steady inventory growth without consuming reserves required for territorial survival. The decision removed pressure to advertise publicly, allowing Su Yi to remain the quiet manufacturer, while Lin Xiaosha prepared channels that would matter only when demand peaked. He then asked a more revealing question: if she were responsible for selling the products, how would she divide the profits between manufacturer and merchant? Lin Xiaosha answered with an unusually generous 90-10 proposal, giving Su Yi 90% while keeping only 10% as compensation for distribution. For a conventional supplier, that offer would have been almost impossible to reject, especially when the merchant also possessed guild infrastructure the supplier lacked. Su Qi instead became more interested in why she valued the relationship enough to surrender so much margin before the first serious product launch. Lin Xiaosha answered simply that she was bullish on him and needed reliable partners of her own, rather than another one-time seller chasing the highest immediate bid. That statement reminded Su Yi that major guild heirs competed internally as well as externally, meaning a profitable exclusive partner could strengthen her personal standing inside the organization. And their incentives were therefore beginning to align beyond one transaction. She needed differentiated supplies, while Su Yi needed channels and a shield strong enough to discourage predatory factions. He did not accept the 90-10 split yet, because the offer optimized money when the resource he valued more was durable protection. Keeping 90% while remaining politically exposed would be a worse bargain than surrendering additional profit to someone whose family could make aggressors reconsider the cost. Su Yi also wanted raw material procurement handled externally, preventing his public factories from spending all their time hunting inputs instead of manufacturing products. A true partnership could let Lin Xia manage supply and sales, while Xia, Zero, and the subsidiary territory concentrated entirely on technology and production. That division mirrored Su Yi's military strategy. Each component should perform the function it did best, instead of forcing one organization to control every stage personally. Before responding, he reviewed exactly what information a deeper alliance would require him to reveal, and what could remain hidden permanently. His real name was no longer especially dangerous under Supreme Fate, because knowing Su Yi did not provide coordinates to Supreme Heaven, unless he permitted the connection. His public faction could safely remain technology side, since the subsidiary territory actually contained enough machinery to make that description materially true, rather than a fabricated story. The concealment ability could be presented as his primary talent, explaining why outsiders failed to trace his domain, without implying an offensive power worth stealing. What Lin Xia could never be allowed to see was the relationship between that public explanation and the 6 god-tier mystical barracks operating behind the protected fate barrier. Su Yi considered inviting her to the subsidiary territory only after the beginner period, when the factories had enough scale to make the place look like the genuine center of his power. Robots, automated lines, warehouse traffic, and standardized products would provide overwhelming mundane evidence, reducing the chance she felt compelled to search for a second explanation. The safest lie was one built almost entirely from true facts, with only the strategically fatal layer omitted. Su Yi was indeed a technology producer. Xia genuinely designed the factories, and the subsidiary territory genuinely manufactured what he intended to sell. Observers would only be wrong in believing those facts. Described the ceiling of his strength, to consist, rather than the smallest portion he was willing to make public. Lin Xia's 90-10 offer showed she already wanted a long-term relationship, giving Su Yi confidence that he could negotiate for protection without appearing desperate. He also understood that asking for backing meant accepting dependence in return, because a guild would protect valuable business far more reliably than it protected vague friendship. That suited Su Yi, whose entire development philosophy preferred incentives strong enough to survive changing emotions, rankings, and personal moods. Perfect loyalty solved that problem inside Supreme Heaven. Mutually profitable contracts would have to solve it outside. While he considered the final terms, reports from the Ravager front confirmed that more branches had crossed into silver rank and were returning with chests gathered from the endless swarm. The hidden military side was therefore improving at the same moment the public commercial side approached its first real alliance, exactly the parallel growth Su Yi wanted. His income did not need to explain his combat score, and his combat score did not need to explain where the Type S1 inventory came from. Keeping those narratives separate meant a failure in one information channel would not automatically expose the other, another form of strategic redundancy applied to reputation itself. Su Yi finally reopened the merchant chat after letting the 90-10 proposal sit long enough to make clear he was evaluating more than the size of his share. He had already decided the next message would move their relationship from anonymous transactions into something much closer to a formal alliance. Before making that move, he checked Supreme Fate once more and confirmed the talent gave him precisely the protection needed to reveal a name without revealing a home. Then Su Yi began typing, ready to trade part of the profit for something he considered far more valuable than another pile of rookie-period crystals. His factories could always manufacture another batch, but recreating a trusted distribution network, after offending the major guilds, would cost time, secrecy, and opportunities that no blueprint restored. That made the upcoming negotiation another kind of battlefield, one where percentages, names, and access rights mattered more than troop ranks or destructive skills. Su Yi approached it with the same rule he used everywhere else. give away what could be replaced, protect what could not, and make every ally profit from keeping the arrangement alive. Sui's first move was to stop hiding behind the Otherworld Traveler account, long enough to give the merchant something a real long-term partner could actually use. He introduced himself as Su Yi and described his public path simply as technology side, revealing nothing about Supreme Sovereign, Crystal Palace, or the divine armies behind Supreme Heaven. Lin Xia answered with her own real name, turning the conversation from two anonymous usernames into an exchange between people who expected the relationship to survive the rookie period. She then revealed the scale of her background. She was one of the heirs of the Apocalypse Merchant Guild, one of the Empire's 8 great trading powers. The guild operated across countless lord worlds, centered around the imperial system, and possessed of god-tier backing that ordinary organizations could not casually pressure one of its serious businesses. Su Yi's evaluation changed immediately, not because he suddenly trusted Lin Xia emotionally, but because the political value of a profitable alliance had become much larger. A merchant from a minor house could move goods. An Apocalypse Merchant Guild heir could move goods, while making competitors calculate whether interference was worth the consequences. That was exactly the external shield Su Yi wanted for the subsidiary territory, once factories began selling equipment at a scale impossible to keep invisible. He therefore rejected the 90-10 split even after confirming how favorable it was to him, surprising Lin Xia by voluntarily demanding a smaller share. Su Yi proposed 50-50 instead, with one half of the profit going to each side, rather than treating Lin Xia as a simple commissioned reseller. In exchange, her side would handle raw material procurement, establish sales channels, market execution, and the political trouble created when a new manufacturer started taking meaningful business. Su's side would handle technology, factory production, product improvement, and the designs that made the partnership different from ordinary resource trading. He did not care how Lin Xia ultimately priced individual batches, as long as the agreed half of the profit returned to him, and the protection remained real. Giving away 40 additional percentage points looked expensive only if money was the sole objective, and Su Yi had already learned that wealth without backing attracted predators. His 6 god-tier barracks still needed to remain hidden, while the public factories needed enough institutional legitimacy that established powers saw commerce instead of an opportunity to seize a rookie. Lin Xia accepted quickly because 50% of a scalable exclusive supply could be worth vastly more than 10% of a relationship that never became strategically deep. For her, the agreement also created a product source other guild heirs could not automatically copy, strengthening her own position inside a family where inheritance and influence were competitive. For Su Yi, the arrangement meant he could spend time building, instead of negotiating separately with thousands of buyers, arguing over every material shipment, or defending each public sale. The partnership therefore divided labor exactly as he preferred. Professional merchants handled markets, professional researchers handled engineering, automated systems handled production, and hidden armies handled survival. Both sides ended the negotiation with a simple agreement to continue cooperating when better weapon and equipment appeared, rather than limiting the deal to the first Type S1 batch. Su Yi then sent the relevant material requirements and production information without the nervous hesitation a weaker manufacturer might have shown when exposing recipes to a major guild. Several reasons made that decision safe enough. The products targeted low-rank rookies. Their individual strategic value remained limited, and stealing them would destroy a far more profitable supplier relationship. More importantly, Sia had researched the factory blueprints herself, instead of obtaining identical public recipes that any competitor could reproduce after seeing the same material list. Knowing that wood, metals, crystals, and basic alloys entered a factory did not magically give another Lord Sia's mechanical creator talent, or the Tech Research Institute's development bonuses. If someone nevertheless reconstructed the products independently, Su Yi could accept that loss because the first Type S1 line was never supposed to be his final technological ceiling. Sia could continue upgrading designs while zero-optimized production, making the real competitive advantage the research system rather than one weapon model. That let Suki share replaceable information freely, while protecting the irreplaceable person and structures responsible for generating new information. It was the same logic behind keeping ordinary original Sin weapons copyable in the Divine King's vault, excepting that Lilith Sylph's exclusive hero scythe could not be reproduced. One system copied equipment, another manufactured technology, and both taught Su Yi the same lesson. Ownership of the process mattered more than hoarding one finished item. After sending what Lin Xiaosha needed, Su Yi closed the chat without worrying that the Apocalypse Merchant Guild would suddenly pirate a beginner weapon line. From his perspective, betraying the agreement would make no economic sense. When a cooperative Su Yi could keep producing new items for years if the relationship remained beneficial. He had also secured the most important non-financial term, because Lin Xiaosha's guild connection could stand visibly beside the subsidiary territory when outsiders began asking who supported the manufacturer. Supreme Fate ensured that political visibility around the public territory did not weaken the consequences surrounding Supreme Heaven itself. That combination finally gave Su Yi a way to be known without being exposed, rich without displaying the source of all his wealth, and influential without revealing his true army. While Su Yi treated the agreement as calculated mutual protection, Lin Xiaosha reacted with a satisfaction that came from information he still did not possess. She had not invested this much patience in him merely because he paid on time or because the first resource card trades produced respectable commissions. Lin Xiaosha possessed a personal talent called Fortune Investor, a merchant-oriented ability that evaluated the future wealth fortune carried by other lords. Through an eye of fortune, she could observe that economic destiny in 7 color grades, rather than guessing entirely from current equipment, family name, or leaderboard position. The sequence rose from gray through white, cyan, blue, purple, and gold, before reaching the highest color she had ever encountered, red. Among the billions of newcomers entering the eternal world, Lin Xiaosha had inspected more promising people than an ordinary rookie could ever contact personally. She had seen wealthy families, talented heirs, rare barracks, and lords whose starting advantages looked overwhelming by normal standards. Yet only one newcomer had ever appeared beneath her eye of fortune with red wealth fortune, and that person was the anonymous customer, now calling himself Su Yi. The signal did not reveal Supreme Heaven's coordinates, troop composition, Supreme Sovereign, God-tier barracks, or the hidden mechanisms producing his impossible growth. It did not tell Lin Xiaosha that fallen angels resurrected, that dragons carried annihilation power, or that a subsidiary territory existed specifically to hide a second empire behind it. Her talent was narrower, and therefore more useful for what she cared about. It told her that Su Yi's future relationship with wealth stood above every other rookie she could currently evaluate. The Eye of Fortune also had rank limitations, allowing Lin Xiaosha to inspect lords only around her own level or roughly one major rank above. That restriction prevented the merchant from calculating Su Yi's exact strength once his development moved beyond what her talent could properly examine. She therefore knew he was extraordinarily valuable without knowing why, a combination that made cooperation far safer than confrontation from her point of view. Red fortune meant that linking her own business interests to Su Yi could generate money on a scale ordinary deals would never approach. It also meant insulting him for a small immediate advantage could sacrifice years of future profit simply to win one argument over prices or materials. That was why Lin Xiaosha had contacted him early. Sourced strange items, without excessive questions, extended credit, and tolerated secrecy that another customer might not have received. Her friendly tone was not evidence that she had become careless. It was the rational behavior of a fortune investor who believed she had discovered the best economic prospect in the rookie generation. Lin Xiaosha also understood she was not the only Apocalypse Merchant Guild heir capable of building partnerships, so delaying too long risked leaving the opportunity for a sibling or rival. Securing good relations with Su Yi before his value became obvious gave her an advantage impossible to purchase after every major merchant recognized the same supplier. That competitive pressure explained why a 90-10 split had not frightened her. Losing margin today could still be profitable if it secured access to red fortune tomorrow. The final 50-50 arrangement was therefore more balanced than her original offer, while still granting Lin Xiaosha the deeper, exclusive relationship she actually wanted. Su Yi did not know the red fortune calculation behind her behavior, yet his own reasoning had reached a compatible result through a completely different path. He wanted a backer whose self-interest made protection reliable, and Lin Xiaosha wanted a supplier whose fortune made long-term FET investment unusually attractive. Neither side needed to pretend the alliance existed because of destiny, romance, or friendship. Profit and survival were already strong enough foundations. That made the relationship unusually stable for two rookies who still knew very little about one another, beyond what each side deliberately chose to show. From there, Supreme Heaven accumulated Original Sin Fallen Angels, Pure Blood Darkness, Holy Angels, Gene Guards, Ultimate Dragons, Valkyries, and Delmas's Destructive Star lineage. Crystal Palace turned every future troop female, doubled female strength, and raised potential, creating the literal harem mode restriction that sounded ridiculous while functioning like a military enhancement. None of those systems appeared on the public business proposal Lin Xiaosha accepted, which listed only technology, production, materials, channels, profit, and mutual protection. That gap between reality and appearance represented Su Yi's greatest achievement so far, because overwhelming power was far safer when outsiders had a profitable reason to accept a simpler explanation. The subsidiary territory could display factories and Type S1 machines openly, giving visitors something concrete enough to satisfy curiosity without ever showing Supreme Heaven's actual military center. Supreme Fate ensured that anyone unsatisfied with the explanation could not simply bypass Sui's permission through divination and uncover the hidden coordinates behind the cover. The Ravager world could remain a private leveling ground. The mutant technology dimension could remain a private resource, and neither had to appear on any public balance sheet. By separating military power, industrial production, dimensional resources, and public diplomacy, Su Yi had built layers that could continue functioning, even if one layer attracted pressure. The rookie period was not finished, and the final market sprint had not even begun, so Su Yi still had no reason to behave as though his position was permanent. Lin Xiaosha's advice to wait until day 20 remained in force, giving Xia and Zero time to accumulate weapons before desperate lords began spending their stored resources. Every additional rifle, grenade, and robot produced during that delay would enter a market where demand rose naturally from the countdown, rather than artificial advertising. Lin Xiaosha would handle that moment through channels already built by the Apocalypse Merchant Guild, allowing Su Yi to remain focused on territory development and hidden troop progression. The 50-50 split meant every successful sale strengthened both partners, reducing the incentive for either side to undermine the arrangement for a short-lived advantage. Su Yi had deliberately traded money for structure, exactly as he had traded early crystals for seeds, barracks, refresh cards, and wonders whenever those purchases unlocked compounding growth. Lin Xiaosha had deliberately traded margin for access, following the red wealth fortune that told her this particular customer could become more valuable than countless ordinary buyers combined. Neither could see the other's entire calculation, but both understood enough to recognize that cooperation produced more than either could secure alone. For Su Yi, that meant materials, customers, political cover, and a believable public identity surrounding the technology territory. For Lin Xiaosha, it meant exclusive access to a manufacturer whose first simple products had already appeared, years ahead of what most rookies could build independently. Her fortune investor talent supplied the final reason she needed to keep the relationship warm, even when Suki's secrecy made ordinary due diligence impossible. A red result did not guarantee she knew his path, but it made one conclusion overwhelmingly rational. Staying close to Su Yi was economically better than trying to squeeze him. That was why the merchant had never treated his early anonymity as an insult or responded to his strange purchasing requests with the suspicion another guild heir might show. Every seed of darkness, refresh card, upgrade card, resource exchange, and extension of credit had quietly strengthened a connection she believed would pay back many times over. Su Yi, meanwhile, interpreted those same transactions as proof Lin Xiaosha could deliver consistently, which mattered more to him than discovering why she had chosen him first. The two calculations met at the same point, creating a partnership without requiring either person to disclose the secret that made the other most interested. Supreme Heaven remained invisible, the Apocalypse Merchant Guild remained external, and the technology subsidiary territory stood between them as the safe place where cooperation could become public. Behind that mask, silver-ranked heroines continued fighting across a sealed dimension, preserving the absurd contrast at the heart of Su Yi's entire development. To the market, he was preparing affordable rifles, grenades, and utility robots for rookie customers, entering their final survival sprint. To his own armies, he was the absolute lord, whose 100 loyalty, god-tier barracks, and stacked divine systems had already erased. most weaknesses normal territories considered unavoidable. Crystal Palace's so-called harem mode had become far more than a joke about beautiful followers. It now governed the composition and strength of an expanding war machine. Lilith had been the first proof, but she was no longer alone. Every branch added another form of deadly female power, while still fitting Su Yi's unified command structure. Su Yi's real challenge was now controlling how much of that growth the Eternal World, rival lords, guilds, and future divine factions were allowed to understand. The new merchant alliance solved part of that problem without exposing the rest, giving his visible technology path protection, strong enough to exist openly. After Rookie's safety disappeared, Lin Xiaosha closed the deal believing her Red Fortune target would eventually generate enormous wealth, while Su Yi closed it, believing a strong guild backer made his public mask sustainable. Both judgments were supported by the same reality. Neither side fully shared. Su Yi's development had already become too valuable for a simple buyer-seller relationship. Offending him would give Lin Xiaosha almost nothing except a lost opportunity, while maintaining the connection offered an expanding stream of exclusive business. That was why Lin Xiaosha invested first, flattered when useful, and accepted cooperation instead of trying to exploit an anonymous rookie with unusual resources. Among billions of new lords, the Eye of Fortune had shown Lin Xiaosha one red wealth fortune, and she had already attached her business to it. For now, Su Qi remained unaware of that final hidden advantage in the negotiation, satisfied simply that technology, distribution, and protection had finally been joined under one agreement. The rookie month continued. The armies kept growing behind sealed gates, and the public world still had no idea what kind of lord the harmless-looking technology supplier actually commanded. Lin Xiaosha needed no further proof of the economic direction. Getting on good terms with Su Yi meant access to future money, while turning him into an enemy offered only losses.